Okay, sorry, we got a little bit of a late start. A lot of public comment cards that we just had to sort out to make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak. I'm going to right now open the special session for the Eagle Mountain Community Facilities District Board. Roll call, please.
Chair Kavanaugh,
Here.
Vice Chair Brown,
Here.
Board Member DePorter,
Here.
Board Member Magazine,
Here.
Board Member Leger,
Here.
and Board Member Tullis is absent.
Do we have any speaker cards?
Not for the call, Mayor.
Okay. Consideration of approving the Eagle Mountain Community Facilities District Board meeting minutes of May 1st, 2018. There is no staff report. Can I get a motion to accept?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Mayor 5-0.
For items 2 and 3, there will be one staff report. Open the public hearing regarding Resolution EMCFD 2018-02, approving the tentative budget as the final budget of the district for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019. Grady?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. The item before you is the final budget for the Eagle Mountain Community Facilities District. The Eagle Mountain Community Facilities District was created for the purpose of providing infrastructure in the Eagle Mountain community. And the budget that is proposed for next year is $410,026, and staff recommends approval of this item. This particular community facilities district, the debt service will end in approximately 2 years. Or excuse me, I believe in 2021, and it will go away. With that, staff recommends approval of this particular item.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Any speaker cards?
No, Chairman.
Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing. Consideration of Resolution EMCFD 2018-02 as just presented. Any further board discussion? Can I get a motion?
Move approval.
And a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Chairman 5-0.
Thank you. And a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now I will call to order and open the special session of the Cottonwoods Maintenance District. And roll call, please.
Chair Kavanaugh,
Here.
Vice Chair Brown,
Here.
Board Member DePorter,
Here.
Board Member Magazine,
Here.
Board Member Leger,
Here.
Board Member Tullis is absent.
Any call to the public?
Not to the call to the public.
Consideration of approving the Cottonwoods Maintenance District Board meeting minutes of May 1st, 2018. There is no staff report. Any speaker cards?
No, Chairman.
Okay, I need a motion.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chairman 5-0.
For items 2 and 3, there will be one staff report. Open the public hearing regarding Resolution CMD 2018-02, approving the tentative budget as the final budget of the district for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018 and ending June 30th, 2019. Grady?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, the item before you is the final budget for the Cottonwoods Maintenance District. You previously approved the tentative budget on this item, and the budget that is proposed before you is $6,642. This budget provides for the maintenance and landscaping that is over at the Cottonwoods neighborhood of our community. With that, I recommend approval of this item.
Move approval. Second.
Okay. Any councils, any board discussion? There's a speaker card? Okay. Wow.
Ken Quick.
Perhaps this question ought to be directed towards the Public Works Director. And the question is there a difference between the Cottonwood Maintenance District and the Cottonwood sidewalk district. One imprints over the other, and to have maintenance going on when there might be a sidewalk sometime in the future, it seems to me it's a question that needs to be resolved. I asked for a response from the director twice yesterday, and no response. And the information I have relates to the Fidelity Title Company in the year 2000, and it makes some reference to the sidewalk district.
I'd be happy to get your information, sir, and I can contact you myself. So if you wouldn't mind maybe going to the clerk and giving her your contact information, if it's not already on the speakers, it is on the speakers form, then I will give you a call tomorrow and try to fill you in on the details of what you've asked, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. That I will close the public hearing, consideration of resolution CMD 2018-02 as just presented. Any further board discussion? Do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We are adjourned. Okay, now we will start our regular session. Call the regular session to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for invocation. Pastor Ken Brown of the Fountain Hills Presbyterian Church is here with us tonight.
Yes, it's a privilege to be with you folks. 6 weeks ago, I went through brain surgery. I'm standing here tonight celebrating the fact that I no longer have symptoms of Parkinson's disease. So
Wow.
it's pretty sad.
Praise the Lord.
We have a great medical community in this community, not just in Fountain Hills, but in the greater Phoenix area, and I'm grateful for the treatment I've received. So I'd like to lead you in prayer, please. Father, I thank you for this privilege tonight to be able to share with these folks in this meeting and to be able to pray for their conduct in this meeting for everyone in this room. I pray that each person would be considerate of others, considerate of opinions that are expressed, and that there would be a lack of tension in the room and just a way for everybody to agree together that this was a meeting that was well worthwhile and productive. I pray and thank you for each of the council members and the mayor for their willingness to give the time and energy that they do to these tasks that are before them. And I pray that you would bless each of them. And I thank you in your name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. It's great to see you. Isn't that something? Roll call, please, Bev.
Mayor Kavanaugh,
Here.
Vice Mayor Brown,
Here?
Councilmember DePorter. Here. Councilmember Magazine.
Here.
Councilmember Leger. Councilmember Leger. Councilmember Tolis is absent. I believe Henry is still with us. Henry?
Can we make sure that Henry's he's still there? Okay. Okay. I think I hear him. Okay.
Henry, if you can hear us, you might want to mute your phone.
Thank you.
Okay, and everybody else, put your phone on vibrate. That includes everybody in the audience. Please make sure the phones are on vibrate. Okay, and we'll go on to call to the public. We have one speaker card.
One speaker card, Cecil Yates.
Good afternoon. Cecil Yates, 12-year resident. I was here 2 years as a snowbird prior to that. First, I wanted to formally thank everybody, the town of Fountain Hills specifically, for allowing me to represent them as their councilman over the last 6 years. It's truly been one of my greatest honors. And then to mayor, council, and staff, between planning and zoning and council, it's 11 years I've been working in the town. And I wanted to thank for working as a team towards the betterment of the community. Although we might not have agreed on everything, we all agree that Fountain Hills is truly a great place to live, work, and play. It has been my privilege to work with each and every one of you. I look forward to working with you in the future. The main reason I'm up here is to complete some of the tasks that I had as
This is going to be an interesting night.
Is it delayed response as well? I had 2 meetings representing the town, one of which was with Valley Metro, just to bring you up.
Councilmember Leger, you may want to mute your phone until you want to speak.
It's very good.
Excellent.
Go ahead.
On Valley Metro this month, we were celebrating Infrastructure Week, and as silly as that may sound, Valley Metro, we have 66 miles of rail system, 1,500 construction jobs. It's about a $10 billion investment. It's pretty big numbers. The ridership, as of last month, 13% of the total commuters going in and out of Greater Phoenix are Valley Metro riders. Of those riders, 38% are students. That was a new number. That number's on the rise. We just completed a data collection, and we found out that a lot of the discounts that we were giving on fares were being discounted irregularly and to folks who really didn't need them. So we started looking at a new system to update this using technology. Long story short, using this new system, we anticipate we can collect and or save about $1.5 million a year. So this is some big numbers. It's going to help Valley Metro. And then finally, with having a seat at the Valley Metro table, Fountain Hills specifically now has a voice in everything that's going on. We met with several of their execs last week, and we're talking about a lot of the routes, specifically the 514 and how we can connect with the Mayo Clinic route. It was very fruitful, the discussion, and more importantly, for free, we're going to update our existing study to include all the businesses to see how ridership can help them. I know several of our businesses in town could utilize Valley Metro to attract some employees. Moving on to GPEC, I tell you, it's exciting to hear the economic news that's going on. We've had a record year in private investment money. That's non-government money. That's outside money coming in to invest in Greater Phoenix. We're the 3rd year of our strategic plan. We're going to revise it next year. We're definitely on an economic momentum. We have 34 projects that we've been working on. We should have 6 to 8 more finished before the end of the year, and these are good companies, about 6,000 jobs each on average. It's pretty neat. Manufacturing is alive and well and coming to the Valley. And it's not big manufacturing, it's light manufacturing, high-tech, things that Fountain Hills could take advantage of. One thing they keep preaching to us, though, is to have site-ready projects. These are some things that we're talking about here in Fountain Hills. California, for example, takes about 24 to 36 months to get a project through. In Arizona, it's averaging 8 to 9 months. So these are all things that's helping us. And some other new numbers, the West Valley is on fire, and I mean that in a good way. They're averaging about 1.2 million growth annually. It creates an opportunity, but there's also some challenges. All these basically equal to some neat opportunities for Fountain Hills, and so I look forward to future years and what's going on. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Okay,
Mayor,
thank
can we-
you.
Can we make an exception?
Can you,
An exception, I'd like to say something.
yeah, well, can
Open
you
up.
do that? No, no, you can't.
You could, though, at the very end, make your comments at the end of the meeting under the council comments.
Okay. Okay, we're going to our consent agenda. We have 5 items. Can I get a motion to accept as written?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
and I'll need a roll call vote on that, please.
Mayor Kavanaugh,
Here, yes.
Councilmember, or Vice Mayor Brown,
Aye.
Councilmember Leger,
Aye.
Councilmember Magazine,
Aye.
and Councilmember DePorter.
Aye.
Mayor 5-0.
We'll go on to the regular agenda for item 6 and our special number 1. There will be 1 staff report, public input taken during the public hearing, which is now. Open the public hearing regarding Resolution 2018-27, approving the final budget for the town of Fountain Hills for the fiscal year ending July 1st, 2018, and ending June 30th, 2019. Anything on that?
I have no speaker cards.
Okay, now we'll close the public hearing. And now I will convene the special session. Call to order and a roll call.
Mayor Kavanaugh,
Here.
Vice Mayor Brown,
Here.
Councilmember DePorter, Councilmember Magazine,
Here.
Councilmember Leger.
Here.
Consideration of Resolution 2018-27, approving the final budget for the town of Fountain Hills for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018, and ending June 30th, 2019. Grady?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, the item before you is the consideration of a resolution that would adopt the proposed budget for fiscal year 18-19. As you're aware, one of the most important things we do as a town is we put together a spending plan after several months of planning. This typically starts with the council having a retreat that pretty much gives the staff and I some direction on policy and direction. We also have the 2017 strategic plan, which also provides guidance on what is submitted as part of the budget process. The budget that is proposed for next year is $32,414,866. This is down from prior years, and
Can you say that again?
yes, it's $32,414,866. This dollar amount is down from previous years. It also includes our capital as well as our operating budget. Again, this is basically a spending plan for the next year. We did have, at the time that the council approved the tentative budget, it was approximately $7 million higher, not knowing whether or not the residents here, the voters, were going to approve the proposed primary property tax. With that initiative going down, the budget was reduced by the amount of the $7 million approximately. So, in the revenue areas as well as the expenditure areas. So, with that, if there are no further questions, we recommend approval. If you wish to have any questions answered, our finance director is here to be able to answer any questions that I may not be able to.
Any questions from council for either Grady or Craig? No? Okay. Then I'm looking for a motion to accept.
Mayor, I move to accept the $32,414,866 budget for the town of Fountain Hills.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor 5-0.
Consideration of Resolution 2018-34, adopting and establishing the fiscal year 2018-19 budget implementation policy and approving the town organizational charts, the fiscal year 2018-19 pay plan, the schedule of authorized positions, the employee job descriptions, and the fiscal year 2018 comprehensive fee schedule. Grady?
Very briefly, Mayor and Council, this particular item is a resolution that has a number of attachments. It includes our budget implementation policy, our town organization charts, our pay plan for the next fiscal year. the schedule of authorized positions, employee job descriptions, and the comprehensive fee schedule for fiscal year 18-19. With that, I recommend approval.
Okay, any council discussion or questions for Grady or Craig? No speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Okay, then just a motion to approve.
Mayor, I make the motion to approve Resolution 2018-20, I'm sorry, 2018-34.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Mayor, 5-0.
Okay, and I need a motion to adjourn the special session.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned of the special session, and I will now reconvene the regular session. Consideration of selecting the wayfinding sign design concept and authorizing staff to move forward with construction documents. Grady?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, the item before you is a request for consideration of design concepts for the council to consider relating to our wayfinding sign program. Just a note, as the council's all aware, back during the budget consideration, the council decided to push back into the outer years this particular item in the capital improvement budget. However, we, with the consulting firm that actually did the designs that you're going to see tonight, part of their scope of work was also to include the construction documents. So essentially what you would be doing tonight is considering the designs, giving some input, and then what will happen is we will basically hold these construction documents until such time that we have the funding to be able to move forward with those signs. I hope I didn't take away your presentation, Marissa, but I'll turn it over to our senior planner, Marissa Moore.
Hey, Marissa.
Hi, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. I don't really have anything additional to add than what Grady had just said. Just to kind of summarize, though, we are going to provide a presentation. Jen Bressler with Hunt Design there, our vendor, is here. She has some scale models that she can share with you. She's going to do a brief presentation about how we got to these models, and then in the end, what we're requesting is some direction as to what design to move forward with to create the construction documents. And then if there are any questions, I'm obviously here, and the Public Works Director, who's been involved with this quite a bit with me, is also here. So I'll hand it over to Jen Bressler.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I got this. Okay, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council, thank you for your time.
Make sure you use the mic.
Oh, sorry, I'm short,
And identify yourself.
unlike Marissa here.
And just identify yourself for the
Sorry,
record.
Jennifer Bressler with Hunt Design.
Thank you.
I'd like to just give you a short presentation here about the design and the process we've gone through. We're going to talk a little bit about the existing conditions, the strategy that we based the whole design concept on, a little bit about the process that we did, and then we'll share with you the concepts. So everyone's clear that there's a long process to how these things happen, and it's not just one designer doing a bunch of sketches. We started with an assessment and planning stage where we did several trips driving around town and seeing how pedestrians walk, how vehicles move into your city. So there was a whole planning process. We've been for several months in the program design and development phase where we've done several designs back and forth with our internal group. And then we, as you see in this photo here, we did do a design review with the public a couple weeks back, and then we've done some scale models and some full-size mock-ups to test the design. The next three phases, bid award, construction, and completion, are things that we'll be holding on. So again, this will only go through construction documents. As far as existing conditions, what I wanted to show you, and perhaps it's unfair because you never see these all at the same time, but as you move into Fountain Hills as an outside person and as a visitor, what you're seeing is a variety of different signs, some of which feel as though they go as a family and some maybe less consistent with each other. So this is a snapshot of what you see as you move through your city. Nearby signage for residential communities, they also have very similar monuments in scale and color palette. Each of these has its own identity, but they're no longer a city a city identity, but rather for each of those golf courses or residential communities. We've looked around town, and Corten steel seems to be widely used throughout your city, and I think that it's certainly something that'll be long-lasting. So to talk a little bit about the strategy, I think there's some big ideas here that we are trying to hit, and one is to give a positive representation to the town's character. We want to highlight the beauty, the character, the welcoming aspect of the community, the distinct geography, and the fact that there's so many hills, to promote the identity of your place, to make directions clear and not confusing, and we want you to thrive and not just survive. Wayfinding is for residents and visitors. I think this is a very key one. We work with a lot of cities and towns, and I think we're respectful to the residents that we create signage that's going to give you identity, but it's not something that gets in the way of a residence every single day. But you guys also have a lot of events, and you bring a lot of people in for regional events, and you need to have something for first-time visitors to guide them to the destinations that you want to get them to. We want to refresh the signage and implement a unified sign program. Again, this leads back to what I just mentioned, which is we want these things to work as a cohesive family. Many cities all over the country are trying to differentiate themselves from other neighboring cities and residential communities. You can see here a sign from Scottsdale. So each of these cities is kind of on the track to doing this, a similar type of signage. But, you know, what is it that's different about you versus Scottsdale versus Phoenix in general? The other item that we came across, which we thought was pretty interesting, is your strategy that you guys have for your tourism division, which short-term benefits were to try to get guests to spend more time spending money in restaurants and hotels and retail establishments. Long-term benefits are that people have a better perception of Fountain Hills. And I think signage, believe it or not, is a fairly low-cost way of really creating that greater perception. So in terms of the process, I won't bore you with this, but we did spend a lot of time going through messaging and how many letters per line will fit per sign panel. We like to keep our messages as few to each panel as possible for drivers. They've got to be clear. The type sizes need to be big enough that they're readable for drivers. We are looking at MUTCD guidelines and have worked back and forth with Marissa and her team on what those messages might be. In order to go through the planning, what we do is we start with an open map and basically map out all the destinations that we want to get people to. And those are marked by the red markers there: Town Center, Fountain Park, so on and so forth. And then we start to look at the different routes and ways to get people there. And, you know, 3 main northmost routes to get into the town. We've got, in blue, we have a couple of one main primary gateway coming from Scottsdale east on Shea. And then you'll see there's 3 orange dots, which represent other gateways that are already in place. And being respectful of costs in the city right now, we're looking to possibly just retrofit what's there. So those are sort of a few things that we're looking at. So essentially, what we're trying to do is give a face to this system of sign types that you can call your own. The 2 concepts that we have are concept A and B, and these scale models, if you do want to pass them around, you're welcome to kind of hold them as I go through. Concept A is inspired by the Vista and Hills. It's modern and contemporary. We've used Gabion and Corten steel. We've got blue light, which is a nod to the fountain. I think when we started the project, we were looking for what is distinct about Fountain Hills. Is it the fountain? Is it the geography? So that's really what the basis is for Concept A. Concept B is inspired by the desert landscape. It has a very vertical presence. Corten steel again with a sage green. And then the pattern refers to the dark sky and the fountain. And again, these are concepts that we've been discussing all along. I'm almost through here, guys. So here, is the main monument sign as you're coming east from Scottsdale into Fountain Hills. We think this sign is a little bit on the small side. I think that what we're looking for is something that people won't drive by. It's something that they're gonna actually see and welcome them. We're looking at, this is a large panel that has cut out slices through the Corten steel, and you can see we have a very soft blue light that will be ambient light against the back panel only, it won't disturb the dark sky. And then the Fountain Hills letters will also be illuminated. So again, we're looking for a soft representation to represent the fountain. And then as you drive through town, if you're coming in on Shea, we have different scale vehicular signs based on the speed of traffic and the width of the street. So you can see here that we've used the same angles to represent, to sort of give a little bit more identity to these panels. Again, these panels will scale down depending on the streets. You can see all the way to the bottom right. We just have a more typical sign panel when you get on a street, such as here out front. Those panels might be a lot smaller. The second concept, which looks a little short on this screen here anyways, is a little bit more vertical. And this, again, is Corten steel, and we think that it would be a nice accent to the long desert landscape to have something a little bit more vertical. These would be cut out of Corten steel, and then we'd have soft lighting behind, so at nighttime it would reflect both sprays of water from the fountain as well as the dark sky. At nighttime, this is a simulation of what that might look like. And you can see here that, you know, we're still playing with this a little bit, but the idea that we could be more literal and have straight fountains, we could have sprayed fountains, we could focus a little bit more on the hills. And again, a lot of this is just dependent on the public comment. As you can see here, here's the rest of the sign family and how that plays out. Each of these is a powder-coated sign panel coupled with probably a Corten steel backer panel. So when the sign panel were to wear out, or if it were to get hit or whatever might happen to it, that panel can be replaced and the Corten steel would sort of continue in time. I talked a little bit about the retrofitted concepts. These are some of your existing monument signs, and the idea here is that we could essentially take the city seal off, but create a little bit more identity by tying these in as one cohesive system. And here's a few examples of that. We're also looking for the town center signs. Perhaps we can still use the large town center signs as event signage, maybe take those signs and reuse the Corten steel panels and sort of make it for changeable events. So, in summary, I was going to leave this on slide so you can see concepts A and B side by side, and I appreciate your listening to my long-winded design lecture.
That's okay. No, it's very interesting. So everybody can see on their own screen too, because we have a little trouble seeing. There are concept A and concept B. So can we have a little bit of a discussion on your preference?
Mayor, if I may, did I hear you say that there was a public open house on this?
There was a public open house about 2.5 weeks.
Was there a preference for either of
For
these?
either one?
There were select comments, which I can share. I think a lot of people, there were a lot that liked A and a lot that liked B, and some that liked part of A and some that's part of B, and that's part of our job. I think I'd be looking for you guys to think about what's unique about you and what feels right. So I think there have been a lot of good comments, very few negative comments, to be quite honest, in terms of design aesthetic. But we're open to your direction.
All right, Councilman Magazine.
Just curious, how many members of the public showed up for that? Do you know?
About 24 people.
That's what I heard. I think you've done an excellent job in terms of the design. What was the cost of the first phase? About $95,000, is that correct?
So So this is still part of the
understand.
first contract.
Right.
That contract is $95,500. This is one of the elements of that contract.
Right, and the estimate for the second part, which would be the fabrication and placement, I believe that was around $125,000, is that right?
So fabrication, installation of the entire package is approximately $300,000. We are working with the vendor on doing some phasing, and that is one of the reasons why we looked at repurposing the existing signs instead of putting new monuments at every single entry, to try and bring those costs down.
Thank you. Some of us opposed both the ill-fated lagoon and the contract for the signs. We have a real problem, like every other city in town, communicating with the public. During the campaign on the property tax, we heard over and over and over again that the council is spending money frivolously. And the two items mentioned most often were the signs and the lagoon. When the public reads that we've approved going ahead with construction documents, communication being as it is, I believe it will spread like wildfire that we're approving a lot of money to fabricate these signs and place them. No matter how much we try to communicate, it won't make a difference. And so therefore, I can't vote to move ahead with this. And I'm going to make a motion. I move to postpone action on this item indefinitely.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
May I ask for a point of clarity from Grady before we started? What are we doing here right now?
So tonight, just to let you know, council, I realize it was a split vote at the time, but at the time that the council approved the contract for this firm, they approved a couple different parts of the scope. One was to engage this firm to design both monument signs and wayfinding signs. They also had the public component so that the public could provide input. And then the third part was to come up with construction documents, which would then help us get a better estimate of what the fabrication costs would be. So when we're doing our future budgets, we would know really what the costs would be. So that's what we're really asking tonight, is for consideration of the designs, and then they can go forth. As far as I'm concerned, we're paying for this whether we go forward or not. So if the Councilmember Magazine's motion holds tonight, you've paid for services that we may not actually receive. But I understand where he's coming from. I'm just saying I hope that answered your question.
Sure, but so we've paid for the designs, and tonight we're basically saying which one of the two we like, and when we have money,
Right.
it's going to come back to this council to decide if we should begin construction.
Yes, and they will sit on a shelf until such time the council wishes to. Right now, I believe it's 2 years out for the first phase, and the second phase is the year after that. And of course, the capital budget is always subject to the council approving it year to year, so they may change their mind on that as well.
Mayor, council members, point of order. Councilmember Magazine's motion is a secondary motion, so it should be on the table after the main motion has been made. So in this case, after a motion for A or B has been made, then the Councilmember Magazine's motion should be made if he
Okay.
chooses to re-enter it.
Okay. Any other, can we still have our council discussion? Or we have to do the motion first?
No, the main motion needs to be made first, so discussion still is available, and then Councilmember Magazine, if he so chooses, can make his secondary motion while a motion for A or B is pending.
Okay, then we're looking for a motion for either A or B.
I have one other question. As far as the actual sign cost itself, is there a difference between option A and B? One more.
Actually, they're pretty close, and I guess we have a lot of respect for what's going on with your town, and understand where you're coming from, and I think that we've done a lot to try to keep costs down, and a lot of it is sitting in that main monument. So, perhaps there's the possibility that you could still look at wayfinding panels or portions of it or phases of it. But the contract documents are included in our fee, so we will have a complete package with specifications. So what's put on hold is actually fabricating the project. So just for clarity, and between the two schemes, there's not a huge difference. Not something that would draw one or the other.
We're just soliciting opinions. I like concept B. I think it blends better. Concept A is very nice. I like the blue light. I think it looks cool, but some of the wayfinding sign looks like a little more 80s or early 90s kind of vibe, which is cool. It's all, everything's coming back, so. but-
Also, Councilmember DePorter, I'm sorry for interrupting too. You could also, if you wanted, if you found like you liked a particular monument sign and a different wayfinding sign, you can mix and match. So if that's a preference, that can happen tonight as well.
You still sticking with all of B?
Yeah, still with B. I mean, really, I'm really with Alan on a lot of this, that, I want to stop spending on this line. And thank you so much for what we have, and I'd like to shelf it until we have some more dough to do some fun stuff in our town. So we're just not here right now.
Okay, but your resolution, is right now,
Option B.
is for option B as it is?
I too would lean toward option B. I think it's more stately. I think it is more of an entrance statement to our town. And the wayfinding signs, I think they're just a better looking sign. So I too would go along with Councilman
Is that a second?
Porter for B.
Second? Is that a second?
That's a second. Did you make a motion?
Mm-hmm.
Councilman?
Yes,
Okay,
for B.
second, absolutely.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Council discussion. Any council discussion? Councilman Leger, if you've got something, just let me know, okay?
Very good. I'm fine with what's been discussed. I'm just waiting for a vote.
Okay. I also like B because I think B is different than the other towns have. I think A is very similar to what you see in other cities. And in Fountain Hills, we always like to be a little different, so I like B. So I have a motion and a second, and if there's no other council discussion, is there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
No, then I'll just, let's get a vote on that. We get a roll call.
Mayor Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Brown?
Aye.
Councilmember DePorter?
Aye.
Councilmember Magazine?
Aye.
Councilmember Leger?
Aye.
Mayor, 5-0.
Okay. And now we have Councilman Magazine's,
No.
no.
Sorry, Mayor. Councilmember Magazine's motion should have been made appropriately while the motion was pending. So,
That was not clear, I'm sorry.
Do they want to reconsider?
we can open it for reconsideration if we want to go back.
All right, I'm totally confused. Does that mean we vote seriatim, we vote on each piece, or do we?
So the motion for option B would be pending, and we would have a second. At that point, council member, you would make a motion to postpone indefinitely before the roll call is taken.
What if I want option B for the future, but I want to delay now?
I'm sorry, because you're postponing the decision indefinitely, so when it comes back, you're going to be voting for option A or B at that point in time.
Okay. So,
You voted yes for B, and this is just for the design to go ahead with the money that we've already spent.
right?
So the money's already
The
spent.
implementation is a council decision in the future.
In the
Understand.
future.
But can I make a motion now?
So we should have a motion for reconsideration and then redo the motion.
I'll move to reconsider.
Okay, I have a motion to reconsider. Do I have a second?
Just so I can allow him to be heard, I'm happy.
No, you don't have to do that.
Oh, I know.
We're all friends.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to reconsider. I need a roll call vote on that? Yes?
Mayor Kavanaugh?
No?
Vice Mayor Brown?
Nay.
Councilmember DePorter?
Aye.
Councilmember Leger?
Yay.
Yay? Can you repeat that? I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Spell it.
We still can't hear you.
Is that a yes?
It was a nay.
No.
Nay.
It's a nay.
Thank you. Councilmember Magazine?
Aye.
Looks like it went down there.
Fails.
Okay. So do we have to do the motion over again now? No, we don't. It's a good thing you're here.
Don't we vote on the,
So, well, for clarification, so what council just did, as I understand in consulting with our town attorney, is that while there were preferences overall for B, what just happened is that the council is opting not to have the consultant move forward on the construction documents, if that's what I'm understanding. Did I misunderstand that?
No, the motion for moving forward on the construction documents for option B was passed.
Yes.
During the procedural issue, I had indicated that Councilmember Magazine's motion should be made while the main motion was pending. And that did not take place. And that's what the motion for reconsideration was, to go back and do the motion over again, so Councilmember Magazine could have voiced his motion, and that motion for reconsideration was turned down.
Mayor?
Councilman Magazine.
I should have gone to law school. I guess it is, even though this was very confusing to me, I think it is a matter of record that I oppose moving ahead, and that my position would be to indefinitely postpone this. I just want to get that on the record.
Okay, but just to be clear, we're just spending the money that's already spent. I think we'd look worse if we voted to put so much money into it and then decided, I mean, the company would still get the money, but we'd get nothing in return.
When the Times talks about construction documents, I wouldn't want to be answering your telephone.
I'll answer it. Okay. All right, thank you very much for your presentation. We greatly appreciate you coming today, and we love the design. I think it's eventually going to make Fountain Hills really shine. Mhm. Okay, find out where I am here. All right, we are on, if everybody's following us, we are up to number 8. For items 8 to 10, there will be one staff report. Public input is taken during number 8. Okay,
Mayor, number 9.
number 9. It says 8, we'll cross that out. Okay, only during 9. Now, some people wrote on their speaker cards that they wanted to speak on 8 or 9, and they wrote all of them down. So we just moved that all into the public hearing correct place, okay? So we'll let you know when to come up to speak. So, number 8, consideration of resolution 2018 declaring a public record that certain document filed with the town clerk and entitled the Fountain Hills Senior Living Planned Area Development, PAD, case number Z 2017-16. Just to clarify, this is just declaring it as a public record. You like to explain that so everybody is clear on that?
You want,
Do you
I
need
would
to
actually prefer to defer that to Mitesh.
Yeah, okay. Let's just, so everybody understands, they don't think we're not letting them speak.
Correct. I'm sorry, I was reading my, can you repeat that for me?
Just to clarify, I want to, that we're just declaring it a public record.
Correct. Yeah, no, it's a resolution just to make the PAD amendment a public record, and then we'll be going on to the public hearing portion where staff's presentation, the applicant's presentation will be applicable, and then the public will have an opportunity to speak during number 9.
Thank you. Marissa, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. All right, before you is planning case Z 2017-14. It's a request to rezone 9700 North Saguaro Boulevard. 97 North Saguaro Boulevard from Hemingway PAD to Fountain Hills Senior Living PAD. Brief history on this, it went to Planning and Zoning Commission on 25 January 2018. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval with seven stipulations. On February 20th, 2018, the applicant came before Town Council. They had met all of the stipulations that Planning and Zoning Commission had recommended. At that time, Council continued the item until the applicant brought a project that was designed with citizen input. On May 25th, they went back before Planning and Zoning Commission. There were two motions made. One was to forward a recommendation of approval, and that failed 2-5. And then a second motion was made to forward a recommendation to deny, and that passed 5-2. I'm just going to give a brief overview of this. I don't want to take a lot of your time. The applicant is here, and they can give you some specific details. If you have any questions, by all means, feel free to interrupt. They're requesting to rezone to construct an assisted living and memory care facility. The footprint is 78,000 square feet approximately. The interior space total, because it is 2 stories, is 126,000 square feet. They're proposing to have 141 beds. That's a mixture, again, of the assisted living and the memory care. And while there are 36 spaces required per zoning ordinance, 66 spaces are actually going to be provided per their plan. Some of the amenities are dining, community room, clubhouse, salon, library, obviously a kitchen. There'll be 2 entrances in their proposal, southwest corner near North Saguaro and East Trevino, and then another one, which would be for emergency access owner per the applicant, on North Bergamo. They did request landscaping to reduce the quantities. Per Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation, they are going to provide increased sizes. Here are a list of the requests. I don't want to take your time going through them one by one. It is public record, and if you have questions, by all means, you can ask. So here's the existing site. It's next to Circle K, Saguaro Boulevard. Right here. This is the subject property. This is their proposed site plan. They'll be able to go into more detail with that. This would be the first floor, and that is the assisted living. And then the second floor has assisted living, and then the blue is memory care. Just an example of the landscape plan, it's hard to tell. And then they also have a proposal for their sign up here. They can go into more detail with that if you need. This is what they had originally brought forward back in February. And then now you can see they've made a number of changes to architectural style, colors, and so forth. I kind of pieced together some of the elevations that they provided to me. Again, they'll have better graphics than I have. So I looked at a number of documents to try and make a planning determination on my recommendation, staff's recommendation. I looked at the General Plan 2010. That plan is a living document. It will be updated per state statute in 2020. However, I did have to look at what is existing, and there were a number of inconsistencies with the general plan. It was generally inconsistent with the visions, goals, and objectives. I also looked at the strategic plan. I found that there were consistencies with recommendation to downzone, where applicable, commercial properties to residential. And then also looking at current policies and trends based on council's recommendations and approvals or denials of different things going on here in town. And this would serve as a multifamily residential buffer between single family and commercial. As you know, to the south, there's fast food with a drive-through and a gas station and a couple little restaurants. And it is consistent with nearby multifamily density. I made a little map here showing the density is approximately 25 dwelling units per acre, and that would be in the yellow on this slide. And then there are 3 other developments that have about the same density. They're also zoned R5, which would be consistent with this type of development. Made a couple tables showing, I wanted to point out that the Hemingway, because it's a PAD and it had a special use permit request, as does this, they did have to go through public hearing process. If the property were to revert back to the C1 zoning, just as an example, and they were to come in with a site plan that met all of the zoning ordinance regulations, it would not have a public hearing. It would be reviewed in-house by staff administratively. And then I did another little table here showing the Hemingway versus the Fountain Hill Senior Living, the footprint. It's about 30,000 fewer square feet. 1 stories versus Fountain Hill Senior Living is 2. Number of buildings, 10 versus 1, and the number of parking spaces, 90 versus 66. So like I said earlier, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended the Town Council deny Ordinance 1803, and which would be approving the Town of Fountain Hills, amending the Town of Fountain Hills official zoning district map for this property from the Hemingway to the Fountain Hills Senior Living PAD. They also agreed with staff to waive item number 8, or to not approve item number 8. Item number 8 was they were requesting to have a 10-foot wall along the north property line between this project and the residential neighbors to the north. There's some technicalities in the zoning ordinance because this is a residential use, adjacent to a residential use. The maximum wall height would be 6 feet, and so that's what staff is recommending, that we stay with that if you were to approve the request. And that's all I have. And then, as you know, the applicant is here. They can do their presentation. Did you want them to come up, or do you have questions of me, or?
Just 1 second. We're just having some technical difficulties with the audio, and hang on 1 second. Just give us a minute. There's a lot of people that are not here that want to watch this, and we're just having a little problem with the audio. We're trying to find out if it's on the web or on the Channel 11. Give us a minute. Is it the web or Channel 11?
That's the web.
Okay.
I haven't looked at Channel 11.
Okay. It's the web. We're waiting to try to get the sound back to online.
The streaming is okay.
Okay,
It appears to be a Cox feed. He's going to check on the Cox.
so it's the Cox feed.
So if they're on the website, it's streaming fine with the audio.
Okay. All right, well, I guess we'll continue, okay? And hope that we can get that worked out. Okay, so we're on number 8, and we just need to declare this a public record, so I'm looking for a motion from the council just to declare it as a public record.
So moved.
And, okay, and motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Mayor, 5-0.
Okay, now we go on to the public hearing. Number 9, public hearing to receive comments on ordinance 18-03, amending the Town of Fountain Hills official zoning district map for approximately 5.74 acres, generally located at the northwest corner of Saguaro Boulevard and Trevino Drive, from Hemingway Planned Area Development, PAD, to Fountain Hills Senior Living, PAD, case number Z 2017-14. Okay? Marissa?
You want me to do the presentation again?
Oh, no. No, we are now opening the public hearing, and we will start with the applicant. Unless you want to do it again.
No, Mayor, no, thank you.
It would give us time to get the sound going.
Mayor, members of the council, my name is Nick Wood. I'm with the law firm of Snell and Wilmer. My address is 1 Arizona Center, and I represent CA Ventures. I sent an email to all of you last night, Mayor, asking for 10 minutes from my partner to make a record before I make my presentation. So with your permission, Mayor, I'll turn it over to Jason Eby, my partner.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jason Eby. I'm a resident of Chandler, Arizona, and as Nick said, I'm a litigation partner with Snell and Wilmer. I did go to law school, and
I saw that from your letter.
super. The point that I would like to make with you today, I won't take 10 minutes of your time, I appreciate your consideration, relates to how we got here and where we're going from a legal standpoint, aside from the zoning case itself. And I think what we just all witnessed with respect to consideration of your agenda item 7, I think demonstrates why it's a good idea to have the lawyers in the room and why it's good for us to speak up as to what the ordinances say, as well as state and federal law. As we put in the letter, we are concerned significantly about the violations that we have already observed of the town's own ordinances, as well as the likely potential for the town to violate state and federal law, depending on its actions relative to this application. With respect to the town's ordinances, first we have a problem that this application, the indefinite tabling, the motion to table the matter was an error. And then by tabling the matter and not untabling it prior to the end of the next regular meeting, the council arguably denied the application without the benefit of a public hearing, which is a violation of CA Ventures' rights through a failure to follow the rules the council put in place for itself. That's something you can't undo now because that untabling was not advertised for this meeting. Another point, this should never have been returned to the Planning Commission. The council did not take any action to refer the application back to the commission for additional review. Rather, someone at the town simply elected to schedule the item for the May 24th agenda over our objections. It's unclear if this commission hearing was even properly noticed to the general public as required by the ordinance. Neither the PAD boundaries nor the PAD zoning district were replaced with new boundaries or a new zoning district, which prohibits the council from sending the application back to the commission. The May 24th commission hearing was not properly authorized by an action of the town council, and the application could never have been actually referred to the commission by the council because there was no change or modification to either the district boundary or the zoning district classification. Once we got back to the commission, there was a lack of required findings by the Planning Commission. Even if the commission had obtained jurisdiction to rehear the application, which we say it did not, the action taken by the commission on May 24th violated the ordinance and must be considered void. The zoning ordinance requires, as well as state law, that the commission make a recommendation that shall include the rationale for the recommendation. The action by the commission at the May 24th hearing did not include any form of a rationale for the decision, either via a statement by the chairperson on behalf of the commission, by individual commissioners, or most importantly, by the maker of the motion. Without that required rationale, it's impossible for the council, as well as the applicant and the public at large, to begin to fathom the commission's thinking behind the recommendation or to understand why they recommended denial for a significantly smaller project than what they had previously unanimously approved, which is why such findings are a requirement and mandated by the ordinance and by Arizona law. Because of the legally impermissible manner in which the commission heard the case, together with the failure of the commission to follow state and local law, the commission's action on May 24th must be deemed void and disregarded by the council. Where we are now, the changes to the application made in response to both the explicit direction of the mayor and council have now reduced the intensity of this project to a point where this application is no longer a major amendment to the existing Hemingway PAD. Rather, the current application proposes a project that meets minor amendment criteria as found in the ordinance. Now that the application meets that, as a minor amendment, administrative authority is granted to the town manager or to his, which approval cannot be unreasonably delayed or denied. So where do we go from here? The town's failure to follow applicable law in processing CA Ventures' application and the commission's reversal of its unanimous recommendation after CA Venture had satisfied all the requirements for approval constitute, under the law, this is the law school part, of arbitrary and capricious actions which threaten to deprive CA Ventures of its constitutionally protected property interests under 42 United States Code, Section 1983. This would be a federal case. CA Ventures' constitutionally protected property interests in the application and in the permit is well established. CA Ventures can seek relief against the town under Section 1983 of the Civil Rights Act, potentially the Fair Housing Act, and other laws. And as you know, we submitted a public records request to the town clerk last week to find out how this all came down and to determine whether there's been potential violations of, among other things, the state open meeting laws. In the event that the town manager or his designee fails to promptly approve the application under the authority granted under the ordinance regarding a minor amendment, or in the alternative, if the town council violates CA Ventures' rights by revoking or attempting to revoke the underlying Hemingway PAD of 2015, which we're currently attempting to amend, by failing or refusing to approve the application, or by taking any other improper action as to the use of the subject land, CA Ventures will promptly avail itself of all remedies available to it at law and in equity, including seeking significant monetary damages against the town and any individual who has been complicit with any violation of the law or CA Ventures' rights. And just as a final comment, Councilman Magazine's comment with respect to the earlier item 7 of not wanting to frivolously spend the town's limited resources, I have no doubt that the town attorney can advise the council on what it typically costs to defend a federal lawsuit. Not to mention the exposure to damages. We don't have to end up there. I sure hope we don't end up there. I appreciate your attention and consideration.
Yeah, man.
Vice Mayor?
Is it customary for developers to come to town and if they get shut down, want to sue the town? Is this a customary act by I mean, for God's sake. There are lots of other ways this could be handled, but I hate being threatened, and you're threatening us. So if you're going to threaten us, if you're going to sit there and threaten us, I think we should have the right to say, no, I disagree with everything you've said. So now that's me. That's coming from Dennis Brown. Now we've worked with CA Ventures, and the citizenry of this town has created a really, really, really strong opposition. This town has gone through Park Place, the little structure here on the avenue. It didn't take a tenth as much opposition as this corner project on Saguaro. So if you think we shouldn't listen to the citizenry, you're wrong. You know, I don't like to be threatened, and I'll shut it off at that.
Mayor, Vice Mayor Brown.
Councilman
if I may.
Magazine?
I'd like to associate myself with Councilman Brown's comments. I read the letter, which we received yesterday, very carefully. And I want to say that I, for one, don't react positively to intimidation.
Mayor?
But I'll also add...
Councilman
I'll also
Magazine?
add...
Councilman
Mayor, council
Magazine?
members, we just want to make sure that we're not getting to the content of the letter. Those are legal issues, and the town attorney's office will address them at an appropriate time.
Okay, and I'll just add that it has no, the approach has no effect on my vote.
Okay, let's go on. You have a presentation. Please continue with,
You, Mayor.
or start your presentation.
I would like to start with this was a project that was approved in 2015.
Please speak into the mic.
Sorry.
Everybody's having a little trouble hearing. Thank you.
This is the Hemingway project that was approved in 2015. It was approved by both the Planning Commission as well as this council. As you can see, it has a lot of challenges, and the project that we are proposing is significantly less in size, scope, and intensity. When you look at this project, you have one-way in and out, which of course creates some serious issues with respect to public safety and emergency vehicles. You have a series of very large buildings, most of which back up to city streets, which is contrary to any good design and any good planning. For example, you have these buildings here whose back of the building faces onto Trevino. This one faces to the back of Saguaro. And these, of course, are very close to the neighbors to the north, and the back of the buildings face there as well. You have a clubhouse that's down here in the corner, and this is a senior living center. People would have to go outside in the middle of summer to even get to the clubhouse, and that's contrary to most of the conventional designs of any and all quality, high-end senior living. In addition, there's no place for truck delivery. There's no loading areas, there's no loading docks. Trucks would have to come in and deliver at each one of the individual buildings. And of course, while they do that, they block parking spaces, they block the entryway, which creates another very dangerous condition. All of these buildings are 25 feet tall, and it is a larger overall footprint for these. It was just a very, very poor design, but this is what was approved. So my client came in with an amendment, and the amendment was intended to create a more conventional project where they had tried to obtain a 3-story building height at 40 feet with assisted living and memory care, independent living, etc. Now, the Planning Commission at the time approved it unanimously and made a recommendation for approval to the council with certain stipulations. And as you heard Marissa say, those stipulations were adopted before it came to you in February. In February, this council tabled that matter, and the direction was to go back and meet with the neighbors and change the project. Make it smaller, make it better, and that's exactly what we did. And that's really when I was engaged, because that's typically what I do. We had 5 meetings with the neighbors. The first one was March 19th, second one March 26th, April 9th, April 25th, and May 10th. And we had anywhere from 15 to 20 people attend those meetings, and we spent 2.5 to 3 hours at every meeting looking at the plan and redesigning the project in response to the neighbors' concerns, the neighbors' requests, the neighbors' fears, and the things that the neighbors hated most. And that's what we ended up doing. We, for example, originally, again, this is an amendment to the existing PAD. We're not filing a new PAD to replace an existing PAD. You file an amendment to an existing PAD. The original proposal that you sent back or tabled in February of 2018 called for C2 standards. The reason that they used C2 standards was because they were trying to achieve 40 feet in height. And the C1 standards only allows 21 feet in height. Now, it wasn't a C2 zoning district. It was just C2 standards to be applied for reference only. So we agreed with the neighbors that, 3 stories doesn't belong here. The neighbors said, we don't want a 3-story building at this location, and we agreed, and we removed the 40-foot component, and we reduced it down to 25 feet, which is the same height as the existing PAD for Hemingway. We also reduced the height not only for just 3 stories at 40 feet, but we also reduced the height to 1 story for half of the project. So rather than 3 stories and 2 stories for all of the project, we now have half of the project at 2 stories and one half of the project at 1 stories. We reduced the unit count from 157 basically to 130. We redesigned the architecture and the elevations. Right? We were told that the original architecture and the elevations that were presented in January to the Planning Commission and in February to the City Council were really inappropriate and not well designed to fit into the context of Fountain Hills. So we redesigned the entire project at tremendous cost. Our architects are here in case you have any questions for them. But again, we were responding, as we were directed to the issues of the neighbors. Emergency access. As you can see in our site plan, there was an issue with the access point in the upper left-hand corner that goes out to Bergamo. There was concern that there would be traffic that goes in and out, cars going in and out, and would end up into the neighborhood to the north. So we decided to make that an emergency crash gate only, so that the only access in and out of that particular exit is for fire, police, and emergency-type vehicles. We enhanced the elevation along Saguaro Boulevard. One of the issues with the original Hemingway was, of course, you had 25-foot tall buildings with the rear ends of those buildings facing Saguaro. And we were asked to enhance that elevation, and I'll show you some elevations in which we did that. We were asked to include larger trees and enhance screening to benefit the northern neighbors. Now, to the north of us, up the hill, there are several homes. And those homes, of course, are very concerned about what they look at out their backyard, particularly one of the neighbors that is very close to the project. So I'll show you in a moment how we've redesigned all of the landscaping along that area, the walls, the building separation, so that we minimize the impact visually and physically to the properties to the north. We were asked to widen Trevino by 10 additional feet. One of the issues was traffic. Now, the thing about assisted living, memory care, and independent living, now, by the way, we got rid of the independent living. One of the questions that was asked of us by the neighbors was, again, about traffic, is we want fewer and fewer cars. Well, people who live in an independent component, many of them will have cars going back and forth. So we have removed the independent component, and now it's strictly limited to assisted living and memory care. Now, of course, our residents who are memory care, they're disabled, and they're under the disabled person classification, but in reality, they don't drive. I mean, they're not allowed to drive. It's a very secure facility, so they're not allowed out on their own, unaccompanied. And of course, assisted living, although some of them will drive, most of them do not. But as a result, the traffic volumes generated by this is the smallest volume of traffic generated by any other use that could go on this site today. If it was C1, for example, which is typical retail, the traffic volumes would be 4, 5, 6 times greater than what are created here. However, we are also asked to widen Trevino to make more room for those who will come and visit the residents of this facility, as well as to take care of existing traffic. Because there's a concern. The concern is that the Circle K, the McDonald's, etc., they all generate parking on Trevino because that's where the employees are forced to park and not use up the parking spaces in the C1. So basically, we've agreed to widen Trevino at our expense for an additional 10 feet. There's a question about construction traffic. And that is, they don't want construction traffic going through the neighborhood to the north. So we've agreed, and I'll share with you some stipulations that we've agreed to do, to bring all the construction traffic from the south, from Trevino onto the site, and all construction staging will be on the site as well. There's also a question about daytime-only delivery. As I showed you on the Hemingway site, the problem is that deliveries would come in and out, and other than the size of the buildings that were there, the trucks would be heard by the folks to the north. For example, during the summertime, if any of you have seen delivery trucks, the drivers, when they get out to remove things from the back of the trailer, they leave their engines running because they want to keep the thing cool. Well, that's noisy. And it also creates exhaust and all kinds of other things. Well, under the Hemingway, there's no protections for the neighbors regarding idling trucks, et cetera, and the noise and all the other things generated by delivery. So we have designed this project to accommodate that issue. Excuse me, my allergies have been driving me crazy, so I apologize to you. Also, support for no parking on the north side of Trevino. By widening the street, there was also a question asked of us to support. Again, we don't control Trevino other than paying for the expansion by 10 feet, but to encourage the city to limit the parking on Trevino to the south side of Trevino so that that's where the employees could park. So we ended up, as I mentioned, creating buildings that are no more than 2 stories or 25 feet tall. 50% of those are 1 story. And we were also asked to take a look at our landscape palette, and that is create a diverse number of really natural desert landscaping with a variety of trees, a variety of landscape elements, again, to make it look really nice, really inviting, and from a pedestrian perspective, something that fits in with Fountain Hills, which is a gorgeous community, and we believe that this plant palette does that. For example, we have 7 different tree species, and I'll show you the landscape plan in a moment. So here's our landscape plan, and I'm going to point out several of the things that I mentioned to you, plus some other things as well. The original plan that went to the Planning Commission in January, that was recommended unanimously, and the plan that came to you in February, called for the entryway to be right here on the corner. One of the concerns we heard from the neighbors was, as you're coming up Saguaro, we don't want to see a very active entry area, on that corner. Would it be possible to move that away? And we did. So we ended up moving it up here with a porte cochere, and I'll show you some building elevations in a moment. So we've moved all the activity away from this corner and the entry into Trevino here, which again is a little bit higher because the slope is, the fall starts from up here, actually comes down this way. So this is a little bit higher so that you end up not seeing it, and we created a very nice architectural element here. In addition, this is where the garbage pickup is. The garbage area will be internal. It'll be closed and gated, and as such, the only time that those doors will be opened is when the garbage collection truck comes and picks it up. But again, the idea being that everything is on the south side, that this building and the distance now from the neighbors to the north, particularly this neighbor right here, is significant enough that you won't hear the noise, you won't hear the engines running, etc. Same thing with major deliveries that come in and out of the facility. The delivery area is located right here, away from the neighbors here, and not near any of the residential areas anywhere near us. Then we have the landscaping areas. We've got a very big landscape area in the corner. We've got enhanced landscaping here, but especially here. As I said, this home is extremely close to us. As a result, you can see we have very significant depth in the amount of landscaping on the north side, as well as a retaining wall. And the trees will all be 36-inch type box trees, so that they're not small 5-gallon trees that take years to grow and they don't get big enough by the time I'm gone. So essentially, we will make this a very nice enhancement. So the folks who live up here will be looking down at really nice landscaping. And the other thing is we moved this building back. As I mentioned to you, the Hemingway buildings were very, very close to this building as well as the properties that are to the north. And we moved all this back a significant distance. Again, it's all about relationship, and it's all about context. And it was important for us to make sure that the impact that this project has on these, and this is what we heard from these folks, is can you move it away? Can you create these buffers? Can you do all of these things? So again, we had our landscape architect, again, at great expense, come in and make all of these changes in here. We made sure that the landscaping along the perimeter, again, is very lush with lots of trees, so that as you're driving along these streets, what you're looking at is a pleasant view. The other thing that we did is the activity areas. The activity areas are all internalized. Now, of course, you're not going to have parties and other things with folks of this age and their disability, but again, you still have visitors, you still have people coming, you're still going to have birthday parties and other things. So the idea is that the activity areas are internalized into this project right here. With all of the changes that we made to this, that's why this is really a minor amendment to what was already approved. We have less dense, less intense, etc. We're not asking for, the tall 40-foot buildings anymore. We've brought it down to something that is again, this is just my opinion, I think looks very great. As I mentioned, this is the area that has a two-story element, which is right here, and then the rest of it is one story, which is 50%. So here's the view. If you're standing on Saguaro and you're looking toward the southwest, that's the elevation that you'll see. Now you'll note that the porte cochere is right here. You'll note that the building is set back and subdued, so it's not overpowering if you're walking along the sidewalk. And again, we're going to also put the sidewalk in. It's not going to be oppressive. If you look at the project across the street, it's also white. It's also a multifamily project that's much more dense than this one. It's an R5 type project, and that's much closer to the street, etc. And then you take a look at the landscaping. We've got 2 tiers of walls with significant landscaping on both sides of it. And as the landscaping matures, it'll become much, much more lush along Saguaro. This is the view if you're standing at the northeast corner of the project, looking west. The neighbors would be on the right as you're looking at this. And again, this is a 2-story element. Oops, I have bad thumbs. So we have a 2-story element right here, but you can see it converts to the 1-story element as it goes up this hill, and the rest of it is all 1-story going down. So you can see we have a very significant mixture of trees and of different natural plants. But again, as you look at the architecture, we offered or proposed 4 different architectural designs to the neighbors. And of course, we asked them for their input. And we had a Santa Fe type of plan, and we had others. The bottom line is there was no consensus by everybody. Of course, when it comes to architecture, right, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, so we had 4 different plans and 4 different sets of opinions. But in responding to the fact that many of them didn't want a flat roof, so we put the element, which is kind of this angular element here all the way along. We've got this little pop out here, again, to add some interest to the site, to create some articulation to the building so that they don't look like one long, massive wall. And again, they're very subdued because of the fact that they're 2 stories and 50% 1 stories. And then this, can't see it very well on the screen, but it's very high-end railings that are on the balconies. This is the view coming in from what I showed you was the gated section along Bergamo, which is, again, we didn't put the gate here because it would have obscured the view. But if you're coming down Bergamo from the north, this is what you're going to see. All 1-story buildings. And again, very nice architecture, very pleasant, very pleasing. Lots of landscaping, nothing that is offensive. This is the view from the intersection of Bergamo and Trevino. So if you're looking to the northeast, again, this is what you're going to see. There's a nice little element here, and I'll show you another view of that. Again, this is all 1 story with, again, all native plants. Here is the actual element that I showed you. Again, this is all one story along Bergamo and along Trevino with our different tree types. And these are the trees that would be planted and would end up there. This is the area I shared with you, which is the delivery area. Again, this doesn't look like a place that you'd back a truck up into. The idea is not to make it look like a loading dock, make it much more pleasant. So this is the area where loading will occur, and it's on the far south side of the buildings. In addition, here's the area with the doors that would open and close for garbage, and you can see we use stone and other elements to make it look pretty nice. This is the corner of the intersection of Saguaro and Trevino. And as I mentioned, we moved the entrance away from this corner. We moved it over to the porte cochere. And we created this architectural element here. Again, to take away from the stark lines of a typical building that's on a corner and to make it such that we have a nice outdoor element here. And again, this is all a very nice landscape area from what you can see. Here's another view of that with the porte cochere. That's right here. And that architectural element I just described right here. As you're coming up Saguaro Boulevard, this is what you would see going north. On the left is all of the commercial that's there. I've heard the term, this is the gateway into Fountain Hills. Well, that's correct. The intersection of Saguaro and Shea is the entryway. But we're not at the entryway. We're the first non-commercial development that's north of that, but this is what you would see. Again, they're not tall buildings, they're not overwhelming. They're much understated and very simplistic. Now, one of the things that we told everybody was, and I shared with you the promises we made regarding delivery areas, truck deliveries, etc. We promised them that, I've been doing this in this valley since 1985. Seems like almost 100 years. And one of the things that I always tell people is when my client promises you something, you don't have to take my word for it. In fact, you shouldn't take my word for it. I'm a lawyer. But, don't take my word for it. But what we'll do is we'll put it all in writing so that it's something that you can rely upon. If it's approved, it becomes part of the record. And as such, it's enforceable against the client. So we have created some additional stipulations that we would ask if you do approve this project, that you include these stipulations as part of that approval. The first one is that all deliveries, except for those related to resident move-in and move-out activities to the project, shall be limited to the loading area located on the south side of the building, with access to the site being limited to Trevino Drive as shown in the exhibit. If you take a look at the exhibit, you can see how we have all of the loading and unloading coming in, as you can see on this directional map. Now, the rationale behind this, in fact, I should be able to pull one up here. There we go. The rationale behind this is, again, to keep trucks and deliveries away from the neighborhoods. Now, one of the things that we will do is that final sentence in this stipulation. It says the vendor contracts should include a provision to enforce this requirement. So when we enter into our contracts with our vendors, we would have as a provision in that contract a statement that the only way in and out of this project is as shown on the attached exhibit. Excuse me. Number 2, all service activity, including trash collection for the project, shall be limited to the loading area in the south side of the building. Again, service contracts should include a provision to enforce this requirement. Again, it's the same exhibit. 3, construction traffic shall be limited to Trevino Drive as shown on Exhibit B, and this is Exhibit B. The use of Monterey Drive and Bergamo for construction traffic is prohibited. Okay, we have to keep construction traffic off of Monterey and off of Bergamo. All construction contracts should include a provision to enforce this requirement. Number 4, upon completion of site grading and the construction of some of the parking spaces and associated drive aisles, construction parking shall be provided on site. Again, we want to keep trucks, especially for construction. We've all seen this, right? You got 30 guys standing around, one of them, they're all holding up a shovel. And one guy's doing all the work, but all of the trucks are all over the city streets, or the town streets in this case, and we can't have that. So we'll have a provision that says they all have to be on site. 5, the access drive located at the northwest corner of the site that provides access on the Berkamo Drive shall be limited to emergency vehicles only and shall be gated. The gates shall be closed at all times. As I said, the idea is we don't want, excuse me, any kind of vehicular traffic going in and out of the neighborhood to the north, so we're trying to keep that buffer away from them. So this is basically an amendment to the existing PAD that was approved in 2015. It's smaller, it's less intense. It addresses issues that were not addressed in that. But more importantly, we did as we were asked to do. This council in February could very well have just denied the application and sent them on their way. But you decided not to do that. Now, again, your reasons are your own. But the bottom line is, by sending them off to do what they did, they spent a lot of time and a lot of money, tremendous amount of money. And I'm not cheap, but the architects and the landscape architects are a hell of a lot more expensive than I am. And they did what you asked. They did what the town asked. We talked to the planning director, and Bob said the same thing. Go out and work with these people. So that's why, we sit here today asking you to approve this, because they've earned it. They've done what they've been asked to do. It's an amendment to existing PAD. It's really a minor amendment, because all we're doing is changing some of the site plan, we're changing some of the building elevations, we're changing some of the landscape, but it's all an improvement over what was approved by this council just 3 years ago. So I apologize, Mayor, for my long-winded presentation.
That's okay.
But I would respectfully ask that you approve this case with the stipulations that staff is proposing. And again, we're okay with the lower wall along the north. You heard Marissa say that 10 feet won't work, and we've agreed to the 6. And with the additional stipulations that I've provided to you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for the applicant at this time? Questions from Marissa? Or we will do public now? Okay. Let's,
Mayor, we have 2 cards. The speakers did not wish to speak. Michelle Kruk, they're against the project. Wendy Mueller, also against the project. We have 12 speaker cards who do want to speak. And we start with Joanne Meehan, followed by Peter Gray.
okay, let me just remind everybody, who wants to speak, you have 3 minutes. You can tell by the little light up here. When it turns red, your time's up. Please just give your name and that your town. Just don't say your street address, okay?
Hello. My husband and I are here tonight to voice our concerns over the proposed nursing home at the corner of Trevino and Saguaro and urge you to vote a resounding no. There are many negatives regarding this endeavor, but we are focused on the complete lack of adherence and consideration of our town's strategic plan that many citizens and town employees gave input to, of which I placed many hours upon. With the proposed senior facilities being highly visible to traffic on Shea Boulevard, we fear that Fountain Hills could become stereotyped as a town for the elderly exclusively. In the 2017 Strategic Plans revision, the creators of that plan expressed caution that our town could become Sun City of the East. Should the proposed nursing home come to fruition, that type of label will have been earned for Fountain Hills, and we would place that blame directly on you folks. In the third major revision of the Fountain Hills Strategic Plan, stated clearly is the goal to preserving the environment, visual, aesthetic, and living in the Sonoran Desert, and bringing in younger families, of which you know how integral and important that is. You will undoubtedly agree that there is nothing aesthetically appealing in the appearance of the gigantic eyesore structure that the developers have proposed. We will always support any proposal that will lead to an overall improvement of our beautiful town. However, we fail to see any value to Fountain Hills by approving the construction of this unneeded senior nursing home. And you know what? I have to add this. We won't kowtow or cotton to any intimidation at all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Peter Gray, followed by Ted Bell.
Don't forget, state your name and your town.
Mayor Kavanaugh and members of the council, thank you for your time here this evening.
And your name is?
I'm sorry?
I can't get anybody to say their name.
My name is Peter Gray, and I'm a resident of Fountain Hills.
Thank you. And Peter requested 2 extra minutes for the presentation, and I granted that.
Thank you. The people before you here tonight, and dozens more unable to attend, have put forth a tremendous effort rooted in passion, belief, and a desire to see this town thrive and move into the future with our best foot forward. Moreover, it is our hope that through the discussion and topics covered this evening, we will be able to tell the rest of the story that we have not read, we have not seen, and we have not heard in an open, transparent, and factual manner. Zoning and ordinances, they are the core of a community's development plan. They provide the stable vision for the community, which in turn facilitates informed investment decisions from local and outside markets. There is an undeniable parallel, the reaction between investors' decision-making processes when the perception of loose practices and instability exists, and the way in which commodity and financial markets respond to trade wars and political unrest. The difference? We don't have a mechanism to hedge or short any of our prospective investors' positions. Before you today is a property which was purchased. It was purchased as C1. You also have before you the same property which has a proposed utilization which is not compliant with that base zoning. This alone does not compromise the justification to rezone to a PAD. The designation of a PAD demands a great deal of care and scrutiny, and it should be reserved for the rarest of projects which zoning did not allow for, but which makes an overwhelmingly compelling argument for the long-range betterment of the adjacencies in the community as a whole. At this stage in the process, the developer, to his credit, has put a great deal of time and effort into this application. However, we are very far from the discovery of that elusive and overwhelmingly compelling argument in the PAD's justification. High density and multifamily residential. It is referenced nearly 30 times by both staff and developer in their recommendations in the application and in the approval recommendation to rezone. Yet none of the substantiation documents, recommendations, or presentations lead us to the logical course of review, which is actually an evaluation under the parameters of R5. The town ordinances in general are developer-friendly. The guidelines of R5 are reasonable, and an application review in the context of the two combined would have mitigated the majority of what we contest before the council here tonight. In defense, and this is in defense of our own zoning, strategy, and development guidelines. It stands to reason that simply because a proposal does not fit the rule book, it does not mean we toss the book aside without that compelling reason to do so in our hands. We are certainly not here to pick winners and losers in an open market. However, as a town, we have an obligation on many levels to respect our agreed-upon governances, our development strategy, and the town plan, in lieu of writing the rules in the interest of few and at the expense of many. At last census, there were 3,196 acres of remaining undeveloped land in Fountain Hills. There are plots offering opportunity for this business model, which zoning, planning, and infrastructure can fully support today without the catastrophic near and long-term effects on its neighbors and future mitigation requirements necessary at great expense to this location, at this location that will have on the compact and landlocked location presented. In the end, if this plot is the one and the only, the one that ticks all of the boxes and further manifests the overwhelming argument of justification necessary to proceed, the responsible pathway forward is to revert this parcel back to C1 this evening across all agenda items. Carefully consider the merits of a C1 to R5 change request against the relevant criteria, and if vetted, ultimately permit this project within those requirements as set out under the R5 guidelines. Anything short of this is a disservice to the process, it's a disservice to the town, and most importantly to the people who have and those whom will invest in this town for years to come. It is with this understanding and care that we, the residents of this town, offer up a number of exhibits in reference to the submission and decisions before you here this evening. Dawn's holding up two graphics here for us to look at. I'd like to start with the graphic on the left quickly. This graphic represents the overall lengths in 50-foot increments of the largest buildings in this town. Park Place condos, 180 feet end to end. Town Hall, 170 feet end to end. Bashas' Market, 300. Fry's, 300. Target, 400. And Fountain Hills Senior Living PAD, 600 feet, 33% longer than Target on a little postage stamp piece of property spanning end to end. You don't see that in any of the submission tonight. You haven't heard it and no one's disclosed it to you. This would be the largest single-use building in Fountain Hills placed in a low-density residential neighborhood, an R1 to 35 neighborhood. The second image, the one on the right, has a red line. That red line represents the overall length of this property. That line stretches from Palisades all the way through to the far end of Ace Hardware. And I hope that that is a compelling argument for you here tonight. Thank you for your time.
Ted Bell, followed by Jane Bell, and then Tom Lindsay.
Mayor Kavanaugh, council members.
Use the mic.
Use the mic.
Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council. My name is Ted Bell. I'm a longtime longtime resident of Fountain Hills. We built our house here in 1980, my wife and I. I'd like to talk about the building height. Building height has been depicted within the required 25-foot restriction without any further discussion. We just said, okay, it's there. Consider a typical doorway, which I've shown on here, as being 7 foot high, commercial doorway, not the ones that you have in your bedrooms or anything else. This is commercial. So if you stack these 7-foot doors up against the building, you've kind of come up with maybe 30 to 35 feet, not 25 feet, as has been pointed to us. So if you do that, you'll find out that 50% of the building is over 25 feet. Facts. The pad application contains a very subtle little asterisk, which cleverly denotes that the final building height is taken from the existing grade where it is today. More clearly stated, the top of the proposed building is being measured from the natural hillside before the 22-foot excavation that they're going to take out. is included in there. And that's how we get this height in here. It's on here. The signage vintage, and I wish the girl was still here to talk to her about it. We need to show her what signs they're proposing to put in. The variance request asks, 6 asks for monumental sign to be measured from the finished or engineered grade, and further states that the sign is under the 50-foot maximum area allowed, which is inaccurate. The sign that's being proposed is 55.7 area. At this size and height, we have our proverbial billboard. We don't need the girl. Welcoming visitors to Fountain Hills Resident Living. That's the sign that's going to show up on Saguaro as you come across through there. Thank you very much.
Jane Bell, Tom Lindsay, then followed by Jane Burstena Myers. Sir,
Okay.
Jane Bell's first. Jane Bell.
Mayor and council,
You are Jane,
Jane Bell,
Fountain Hills resident.
Fountain Hills residents.
Got it.
I want to address with you the demographics of our existing senior living homes, plus the new proposed one. We have 2 existing homes now within a 5-mile radius, and the new one would make 3. They all would have to split with the people. Fountain View has 202 beds. Morningstar has 92. The new one would make 141. Total empty now is 72. The existing facilities need 65% occupied to stay in business. 3 facilities could put them all out of business, which would result in job loss, empty buildings. We should support existing businesses which have factored in the future growth. Facts to consider here are also 85 years is the average age in the facilities. Seniors leave Fountain Hills and go back to be close to their families. In this strategic plan, building more senior facilities, concerned about becoming Sun City East on page 17. I'm not a lawyer. I'm an old woman, 80 years old, standing here. And I'm trying to keep our living facilities, our homes that we worked hard for, and our neighborhoods. I would really appreciate if you vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Tom Lindsay, followed by Don Bursta Myers.
Sorry about that. Hearing isn't what it used to be.
It's okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Town Council members. My name is Tom Lindsay. I am a 13-year resident of Fountain Hills, and I live just up the hill from this proposed senior living project. Please visualize the intersection of Trevino and Saguaro with Circle K, Senior Taco, and McDonald's. Now envision that you live in one of the homes adjacent to the proposed senior living pad. What are some of the questions that you are asking yourself? The pad is currently zoned C1. So is it really still C1 in practice if all 8 or 9 of the variances are approved as requested? Or is it now closer to C2? Some of the variances, why is it necessary to request the large number of lights proposed for this project to be an additional 5 feet higher than what the code currently allows? Wouldn't you ask yourself, is this neighborhood friendly? How will this extra height and lighting impact my home? How does this additional lighting fit into our image as a dark sky community at the entry of our peaceful town? Is a 10-foot right turn lane really going to make much of a difference on the amount of increased traffic by employees, medical staff, visitors, delivery people, emergency vehicles, and redirected traffic on the narrow residential street like Trevino? And what is the intersection of Trevino and Saguaro going to be like during the construction? And what about the redirected traffic on Bergamo and Monterey, because everything is going into the intersection from Trevino and Saguaro? Are the proposed parking spots really sufficient for this landlocked site, not only now, but if the senior living facility makes maximum capacity of 141 beds and approximately 85 full-time employees? If you refer to Exhibit 5 of the packet that was emailed to you and handed out to you, Peter did an outstanding job of detailing how, even though the current parking spaces fit Fountain Hills Code, it doesn't appear that the Fountain Hills Code is really up to snuff to handle the parking demands of a senior living facility. We already have one of our current facilities, which is only at 60% occupancy, and there are vehicles being parked out on the street. So are the 66 spaces really going to meet the needs of occupants, staff, visitors, medical professionals, delivery, and new clientele? Or will there be side street parking on Bergamo and Monterey and Trevino, if we get to that point? And what if the senior living project is not successful and has to be turned into apartments? That site would be approximately 180 parking spots, sort of code of transitioning to that type of living. Public safety on Trevino is a concern. And what extra cost will there be for the town for infrastructure at the intersection, and does the current fees? In closing, we agree that the developer has responded to many concerns of the citizens in town. But I want you to ask yourself, why are the overwhelming majority of residents who live adjacent to this pad and in that neighboring area still opposed to this project? Why did the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend in a 5-2 vote for the town council to not approve this project? I believe it's because this is the wrong project for this location. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Don Berksta Myers, followed by Pete Mills and Alinka Ziermont.
Hi, my name is Dawn Berksta Myers, proud resident of Fountain Hills. Mayor, council, thank you for this opportunity for me to speak on this issue tonight. I am against this project because of my own direct experience with my father that I had at Fountain View Village. As presented, parking will be a problem. And this is, again, what I've experienced with my dad living at Fountain View Village. During the week when I went to visit my dad, the parking was an issue and a problem. Why? Because senior living facilities need to have parking for staff administrators, caregivers, housekeeping, kitchen/dining staff, home health. Just like when people are discharged from the hospital, home health follows up with the patient, with whether it be speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, wound care, just to name a few. What about portable and mobile services, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Services that are available like X-rays, EKGs, and ultrasounds and more. Contractors coming to repair the work at the facility. Some assisted living residents do continue to drive, and they need a place for their car. Emergency vehicles, guest speakers, entertainment for the residents, and of course, family and friends visitations. And I just want to add, what about landscapers that need to come and take care of the trees and cut the trees? Thank you.
Pete Mills, Alinka Ziermont, and then Mary Lou Gray. It says Mary Lou Gray.
Mayor Cavanaugh, council members, thank you. My name is Glenn Mills. Pete is a nickname. I'm a long-term resident of Fountain Hills. Well, 19 years, to me, that's a long time. I walked this area for many years, and getting down near the McDonald's area, I was constantly involved with just an overflow of traffic, cars everywhere. You had cars on the street, which have been identified as employee parking, really were customers of McDonald's and Senior Taco parking. Most of them at noontime would be landscape trucks, occasional RVs, et cetera. And many of those would go up to Berkamo to get out and back to Monterey to get down. But that corner of Circle K with 5 restaurants, the gas pumps there, all the traffic going in and out of there, it's got to be the busiest corner in town, commercial corner in town. And putting this nursing home right at that corner, they're assuming that senior citizens have no independence, no spirit of independence, wanting to get out and about. If I was there, I certainly would want to be out and about. If I could push my walker, fine. If not, I'd get a little scooter. But that corner is ridiculous with traffic. Probably wouldn't last too long doing that. So my conclusion is that is the wrong place for a senior citizen living center. I attended many of the meetings that the developers put on at the hotel. I would say an average there were 12 to 15, maybe a few more at each meeting. I only remember 2 attendees who were in favor of the project and more or less felt that the developer could do what they wanted. There were others who were unhappy with the exterior elevations and wanted those changed. There were also others who didn't want the project at all and told them. They ignored us. So I am against this project, and I hope that you will vote no. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alinka Zermont, followed by Mary Lou Gray, and then Brian Zub.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. I'm Alinka Zermont, and we live in that area. We oppose this proposed construction on the following grounds. I am concerned that the increase of traffic will not permit me to pull out of Palmer to Saguaro. As it is now, the traffic flowing in both directions on Saguaro forces me to sit and wait at that stop sign forever. Although the elderly may not drive, there will be ambulances, delivery trucks, physicians, visitors, so the traffic will definitely increase, and we're going to need a traffic light out there, Palmer and Saguaro. Also, I am concerned that the increase in lights over the parking lot of this building will violate our dark skies ordinance, Section 803, prohibitions. The unshielding outdoor illumination of any building is prohibited except with light fixtures of less than 1,125 lumens within a 25-foot radius. All illumination shall be so arranged as not to shine upon or reflect onto adjoining properties. An example of that. Recently, the VFW's new building with its American flag had a light shining on it, and the condo owners complained that the lights were trespassing into their windows, so the light had to be redirected away from the flag. The developer's idea of installing about 20 lights in the parking lot will also be a violation of our dark skies ordinance because they're not taking into consideration the federal law 42 U.S.C. 1801 et sequitur Americans with Disabilities Act, which requires a handicap parking spot with lights for every 25 regular parking spots, which means additional lights. So they will have more than 25 lights. Our town ordinance states that the lighting of the site shall not exceed 15 feet in height, and yet they're proposing 20 feet. So that is a 5 feet above regulation violation. In other words, they very well may be in conflict with our dark skies ordinance and the ADA requirement. And when local laws conflict with federal laws, guess who wins? Which means you might have to amend our dark skies ordinance, and then you will have a lot more people upset because we love our dark skies. I have a friend who has a $50,000 telescope because he likes to study the nebula and the stars. So to grant a variance of our height restrictions for those lights will make a lot of dark sky voters angry. We like our peaceful, tranquil, star-filled heavens. And we do not like threats. And if I understand the gentleman correctly, when he stated that he would sue any individual who opposes, and I stand here saying I do oppose this because I live in that area, we will countersue, and I'm sure it will be a class action. Thank you, and I hope you vote no. Good night.
Thank you.
Mary Lou Gray, followed by Brian Zub, then Mary Lou Robinson.
Mayor Kavanaugh and Town Council members, I would like to thank you for your time. My name is Mary Lou Ruiz Gray, and I am a resident and homeowner of Fountain Hills. While there are many reasons that this development should not go on this particular plot of land, as you've heard tonight, I would like to focus primarily on the town's 2017 strategic plan and the clear deviation of the strategy that this proposal brings to the table. I would like to start out by stating that I am not opposed to developments in the town. In fact, I highly encourage them, as long as they are aligned with a long-term vision and strategic objectives. If you don't mind, I would like to remind everyone what those strategic objectives are. Maximizing economic development opportunities, ensuring that infrastructure is well-maintained and safe, attracting families and working professionals, ensuring financial stability and sustainability, focusing on strengthening the community and improving the town's quality of life. As part of developing the strategic plan, a SWOT analysis identified that Fountain Hills has a significant demographic imbalance, and therefore is a concern there's a concern about becoming Sun City East. As a result, this is threatening our school systems with enrollment dwindling year on year. Local businesses are struggling to stay open year-round. Fountain Hills has had a longstanding reputation and perception for being a quiet bedroom community where people go to retire. Now, in my experience coming from a marketing background, in order to achieve these objectives, the town will have to work hard on changing this perception. And changing perceptions is very challenging because it can't be done by just changing a logo, wayfinding signage, which was very nice, by the way, or putting pictures of families on brochures. Doing this is changing the perception is gonna require us to look in the town, to look at every single decision from here on out and ask, does this meet the objectives? What is the long-term impact of this? And does this meet the needs of our target audience? I can assure you that putting a senior living home at one of the main gateways to the town that has been historically known for being a retirement community, with a sign that stands 11 foot 4 inches tall, is not conducive to changing perceptions. Maricopa County was the fastest growing county in the nation last year, with 74,000 people relocating here. That's approximately 50 families of 4 every day. The job market is booming, money is going towards public education. Arizona is a great place to be and highly appealing to young families and professionals. It is a critical time for the town to make this shift now because as these families relocate, they are looking for areas that provide them with the great schools and amenities that their families need. There is not only an opportunity for us to appeal to those newly moving into the state, but it's a great opportunity for us to appeal to those who perhaps live in areas that are going to become congested with all the new people coming in, and are looking to move out into other areas, other great locations. With limited land for development in this town, we need to focus on bringing in the right developments in the right locations to meet the needs of the young professionals and families that this town is looking to attract. By attracting families and working professionals, the other objectives will be met. It will ensure financial stability and sustainability. It will strengthen the community year-round. It will support economic development. These objectives are all reliant on rebalancing the demographic, which can't happen without changing that perception. It is important that these decisions are not taken lightly as a result of a quick development for the sake of building or short-term revenue that the town will see from this. Lastly, on page 5 of the strategy, It states, "Council uses this strategic plan to evaluate all proposals. I ask on behalf of myself, my family, our neighbors, and those who want to see this town flourish for many decades to come, that you please keep the town strategy at the forefront of your decision-making." Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Brian Zub, followed by Mary Lou Robinson, and the last speaker will be Larry Myers.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Brian Zub. I'm a Fountain Hills resident. I actually live right across the street, Burkimo, from this proposed project. And I'm against this project for the same reasons my neighbors have expressed. I don't think that this project conforms to the C1 zoning regulations. I also believe that this project is not going to attract younger families to Fountain Hills. And I would also like to thank my neighbors that live 150 feet away from this project, thank them for their unanimous opposition to this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Lou Robinson, and then Larry Myers.
Thank you. My topic's pretty boring, but I'll try. My name is Mary Lou Robinson. I'm a snowbird, and I'm here not because I have a crippled wing, but because I really care about this project for two reasons. I oppose the project, but also I think that this is the outpouring, the huge interaction of the public and the government in this process can really start to merge. I mean, I believe in government. I'm from the north. You know, I know we have to support our town, and we need to get that communication, I heard someone else speak about, going. And I think this project has energized so many people. I think there are like nearly 300 people who've been involved in this so far. And I think that's wonderful, and you'll be happy to know most of them are voters. Okay, now my topic, which is a little boring. Okay, about this pad business. Now, in 2015, you granted a zoning change to a C1, and somebody named it Hemingway, and it was a specific design for a unique project, and it was granted a special use permit, and that was necessary because of residents. Now, I know you know all these things. But I want to remind everyone, I don't know where this language comes from because I don't believe in legislating by staff language. I mean, you are the ultimate deciders here. I don't know how you can amend a unique design project that didn't happen to anything. It has a sundown. It expired on the 21st, and I think there's first, the developer put in an extension request. He has no standing for that. But then, since then, the owner of the land has also put in one. And you have an option today to simply revert it back to C1 because the application was put in before the deadline. It's been heard after the deadline. And that is one of your options. The reason I think it's important not to amend, and I know the attorney is whispering, I could not find any authority that said you could amend, but I can tell you one reason why it logically does not make sense. And that is when you had the pad created, there was a public hearing because it was considered a zoning change. And they granted a couple of waivers, and they granted a special use permit, which requires a public hearing. And now, in one of these documents, page 3 of 7 of the one that was prepared by the staff, they say, they slide in and say, the following were adopted and remain a part of this development without needing additional approval. And that they slide over the special use permit, they put the waiver, and the abandonment of hillside protection. Now, if that would be true, I'm almost out of time. If that would be true, then you really make a mockery of public hearing. Because those people had a public hearing back then, and my time is up. And I hope the citizens' time is not up as well. Thank you. I'm sorry. I wanted to talk a long time.
Last speaker on this item is Larry Myers.
Larry Myers, 30-year resident of Fountain Hills. Madam Mayor, Council, thanks for the opportunity to speak to you on the subject. Let's wrap this up and let's make it perfectly clear. Citizens are not anti-development. Citizens are for proper development at the correct location. You've heard a multitude of reasons for not allowing this project at this location. And in the town's own writings, which I will quote from, very few for allowing. But here is the crux of the matter. So in this revised proposal on page 2, it states, quote, Fountain Hills Senior Living PAD, maintaining a base C1 neighborhood commercial and professional zoning district-based zoning district, unquote. Here is your zoning regulations. Quote, modest, well-designed commercial enterprises to serve a surrounding residential neighborhood, close quote. Not modest, shown earlier to be the single longest building in Fountain Hills, serves none of the neighborhood. How could it? It's a senior center. Take a look at the map that I have here, and you'll see the residents of the neighborhood opposed, completely surrounding it on 3 sides. The red, the black are nearly everyone within 150 feet of the project, opposed, calling upon the town council voting requirement of a supermajority to change zoning, I like to call that. We believe the requirements have been met. And there are many more citizens opposed to this, represented by signatures as far away as the back of Golden Eagle Boulevard. Please don't construe any blank areas as people in favor of this project. They just weren't reached. Second, quote, not detrimental to the integrity of the surrounding residential neighborhood, close quote. Each red and black parcel on that map represents citizens that say it is detrimental to the surrounding residential neighborhood. Each red and black parcel is a citizen's investment in Fountain Hills of $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000. Real estate professionals have already advised us and confirmed that this project will cause diminution of value for surrounding parcels. 3, integrate, quote, integrate limited commercial activity with residential land use in a climate favorable to both, close quote. You have seen that this is not limited in commercial activity by any stretch, and citizen opposition reflects a climate not favorable to the residents. Page 5 of the proposal says, quote, the town has adopted a general plan with specific goals and objectives, of which the proposal meets some, but is generally inconsistent with the general plan, close quote. Your document, not mine, town's document. This same paragraph goes on to say that the proposal is consistent with the C1 zoning district regulations, which has clearly been demonstrated as being false. In conclusion, staff has clearly said the project is non-compliant with the goals and the plan throughout the document. It still recommends for ultimate approval, while our town planning and zoning voted it down 5-2. One must ask why. The staff must answer this question at some point. I submit that the investment made by the surrounding neighbors in both dollars and commitment to town far outweighs the pittance of this development fee, the pittance of the amount of money spent to try and push this project on the town, and the threatened lawsuit that they just made this evening. I want to quote one last thing from the Fountain Hills 2017 strategic plan. Quote, from its earliest beginnings, Fountain Hills has grounded the vision for its future on the input and aspirations of its citizens, close quote. You've heard our aspirations and received our input. This should be where the town finally says yes to the citizens in the town vision and no to the developer. Town's own regulations compel strict C1 zoning, no waivers, no variances, no PAD, and definitely no Hemingway PAD extension. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else from the public?
No, Mayor.
Okay. If everybody doesn't,
Can I have 10 seconds?
I think everybody pretty much said what they had to say.
I honestly have something I'd like to say in 10 seconds.
I can't let anybody come back up, okay? Because it's already 8 o'clock, which brings me to a 5-minute break, if you don't mind, because we up here need a quick break. So 5 minutes, then come back.
want to tell you guys something. Tess just discovered something.
Before I close the public hearing, are there any questions from council? Let's get into questions. We got questions from Marissa? Questions? I was going to go last. I got some questions from Marissa. Okay? All right.
If I may have a few minutes for rebuttal?
No, we don't do rebuttals, and you already had your presentation, so I'm going to go to Marissa, please. I have some questions, just to clear up a few things that I heard. And I'm sorry if you just not totally prepared for the questions, because I didn't know, what was going to be asked. The issue was brought up about the parking problem and how many spaces there are, and I think that was an important issue, because just recently it was brought to our attention that Fountain View Village seems to be having a parking problem where some of their employees are parking over in Senior Tacos area, and that we found out that because of the issues they're having over there. So just asking, were you aware of that, or how do you feel about the parking problem, the parking issue
Okay.
that was brought up?
I was not aware of the problem over at Fountain Village and
Yeah.
Senor Taco. As far as what staff looks at, if they were to bring in a project and it met zoning ordinance, so in this case, if it was just by default.
They're having trouble hearing you in the back.
I'm sorry, is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. If the project came in by default was an approved use in the zoning district, I would have to adhere to what our parking regulations say. We have had discussions about updating those, but because it hasn't been done yet, I have to go with what it says, and therefore the 33 would be required, and they are providing more. They did do a traffic study. They didn't do a parking study. It wasn't required that they do a parking study.
Okay.
So that is something that could be addressed.
Okay. About this, is there a sidewalk in this? So if the residents wanted to come out and they wanted to walk, is there a sidewalk that's around this?
Yes, ma'am. There will be sidewalk along Saguaro, connecting it all the way up to Monterey,
Okay.
and that is in lieu of Bergamo.
Okay. And what about the height of the lights in view of the dark skies? I know we have a limited amount of lumens, and the light bleeding into neighbors. I know that even homes have been restricted as to their type of lighting. We often get people just recently who called us and said, my light is in my neighbor's, shining into my neighbor's yard, and the code enforcer came and said, you can't do that anymore because of dark skies. So how does this fit in, plus the fact that it's 5 feet over the height?
Okay, in the PAD, I don't believe it says the height of the lights, and that is something that we typically work through during the building permit. This is pretty common, that they come in, they show me very specifically what type of lights they're going to use, what color, how the shielding is, and I look at these things all day, every day. And then also they have to do a photometric plan to show me where the light will fall onto the property, and it has to be 0 lumens coming off the sides of the property. It's part of a site plan where they show where the lights shine down and where usually it's brightest directly underneath. They'll show me how bright it is there, and then as it spreads out, the light underneath it spreads out. It gets dimmer the further away, and so they have to place the lights on the property so that at the edges of the property, there's 0 light.
So I thought these lights were 20 feet and the height is supposed to be 15. How does that happen?
Okay, I might have I might not have caught that in the PAD.
Okay.
I don't recall reading that in the PAD. I do recall seeing that in an email between one of the residents and the applicant.
Okay. I was just curious about these 2 tiered walls that were shown in the picture. Where exactly are those tiered walls, and how high are they?
The retaining walls along the north part of the property. I'm going to use some of your pictures here. See if I can find it.
That one? No.
That one?
No. one. No,
right, is where it would be,
yeah,
back here.
okay. But I think the one, yeah, that one. That's 2 tiers?
Oh, I see what you're referring to. There's 2 tiers here.
Yeah.
Again, these are conceptual renderings. Anything that they didn't ask for that in the PAD, they would have to adhere to our code. So if it's a retaining wall, if it's in a front yard setback, we have height limits, we have separations between the walls. It could be an architectural detail. Again, this is a conceptual rendering.
But it shows 2 tiers, so how high could that be?
I believe by zoning definition, saguaro is actually the rear property line. I know that doesn't sound intuitive. Along the rear property line, they could have fence walls be a maximum of 6 feet in height from existing grade. So if they cut down, it's still, I'm sorry, 6 feet in height, period.
For the 2 tiers would be 6 or 6 each one? You're talking about?
Okay, I'm hearing the applicant say that those are 2 3-foot
Okay, so
walls.
it's 6.
They couldn't be taller than 6 feet, though.
Okay. And I guess the other issue is the same issue I had the last time with the height of the building, because it's being measured from existing grade.
Correct. So that is a common, it's pretty much common throughout town. Even when residences come in, they can go no taller than a certain height, depending on the zoning district. For in this case, it's 25 feet above existing grade. They can cut down, though, a maximum of 24 feet. So then that gives you a total of 54 feet in height, that they're still compliant with the maximum building height, because the building height is measured from existing grade.
So okay. So if it is along the, so what's the height? Do we know what the height is if you're? You know what I'm asking? Like, if you're looking at it, how high is it going to look?
I don't know.
Because I think that's what the residents are interested in, not the technical issue of it's from, the existing grade. They want to know if I'm looking at it, how tall is it?
Right. I don't have that number. The applicant may know that off the top of their head, because it's going to take into consideration how far they're cutting down from existing grade, and then how far they're building up from existing grade. You'd add those 2 together. In this case, the most it could be is 49 feet in height.
The most it could be is 49. Okay, you know the answer?
I do.
Okay, come on up. Thanks.
I'm Mike Sullivan, the architect for the project.
Okay.
The buildings the 2-story buildings that you see on Saguaro and at the corner are about 25 feet to the height of the wall itself, and then there is a bit of a. There's a bit of a sloped roof above that, which is, nominally 3 or 4 feet. We didn't take the maximum cut and the maximum height and add that together to make a 50-foot building. It's a 2-story building.
So from the ridge line, how high is it? If I'm looking at it, how tall is it to me? I'm looking at it. Forget about grade and all that. I want to know.
It's probably
how tall
27 feet to the ridge.
So you're saying that the tallest it is, considering how far you went down, is 27 feet?
To the height of the
tallest?
The one spot right there might be a bit higher than that. We could give you maybe it's 30 feet.
And what about that entrance one? That looked pretty,
That's the one I was pointing.
that's the entrance on the corner?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And thank you.
If I may answer the question, Mayor, about the difference. The existing Hemingway has that measuring device from natural grade. We are happy to stipulate to have the measurement be from finished grade. That way, there's no doubt with respect to how tall the building can be.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any more questions. Does anybody have any questions? Councilman Leger, are you still with us? Do you have any questions? Councilman Leger? He might be on mute. But he
Mayor,
can...
sorry, I was on mute. You're correct.
I'm still here, yes.
Okay.
I don't have any questions. You know, I've had the opportunity to hear their presentation during our first meeting. I took an opportunity to come to the P&Z meeting and hear the presentation, and hear it again this evening after reviewing volumes of material prepared by both the developer and our staff. So I really don't have any questions. But I do have a couple comments I'd like to make. Can you hear me there clearly? 'Cause
Yes,
my
we
mic's
can hear
cutting
you.
in.
Yes, go
My
ahead.
mic's cutting in and out. Very good, thank you. You know, as listening to the testimonies tonight on both sides, and particularly reflecting on our last meeting, you know, as I recall, council did not vote to approve the project, nor vote to revise the project, but rather to continue. I thought it was that simple. With respect to the developer's effort, you know, I believe that it's commendable that they've made a great deal of effort, particularly in meeting with the residents. And what I think I heard tonight is they were implying that the residents were on board with the project after meeting with them. You know, that's not real clear to me after hearing residents' testimony this evening. You know, simply put, I know it's been a long evening. In my opinion, I mean, the developer, and it's my opinion, is trying to force fit this project on the proposed site. You know, the question that begs to be asked is the right project at the right location, i.e. the right site? You know, as I've watched this thing transpire and listened to all the testimony on both sides of the presentation, you know, I come away with kind of an analogy. To me, it's like trying to fit a round peg into a square hole. I mean, and we know how that is. You work hard and you work hard to try to accomplish that, but it just doesn't work. So at the end of the day, you know, is it the right location? I guess that's questionable. The bottom line, and from my perspective, this project is inconsistent with the voter-approved general plan, and I preface voter-approved general plan. So those are my comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there's no more, I'm going to close the public hearing. Consideration of ordinance 18-03 as just presented. Any further council discussion? If not, looking for a motion. However,
So I'm looking at item number 8, and it's the resolution 2018-04, declaring it as public record. Is that what the motion is for?
No motion.
No,
No motion. Then the motion would be
we're on number 10.
we need a motion for...
for 1803, ordinance 1803, amending the
Yes.
Town of Fountain Hills zoning ordinance, zoning district map for the Saguaro Trevino Isle. And I would have to say, before I make this motion, that I think you've done a great job of doing exactly what we asked, but being in the industry and being offered to be sued before we even have a vote to approve or disapprove over maybe a technicality on the way somebody handled something at a planning and zoning meeting is probably one of the most ridiculous things that I've ever seen a developer try to do. And with that being said, I would vote to deny this project.
I have a motion. Do I get a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further council discussion? Councilman Magazine?
Yeah, I too want to thank the developer, if not the attorney, for listening to the citizens and making a significant number of changes and making it into a much better project. I want to read from the staff report something that the last speaker also read. The town has adopted a general plan with specific goals and objectives of which the proposal meets some, but is generally inconsistent with the general plan. My view is that we too often ignore the general plan Rezonings are appropriate in some circumstances, but in my view, we grant them too often, and too many waivers and too many variances. Citizens rely on the plan and existing zoning. They rely on it. If we're going to ignore the plan and zoning, why have it? The final thing is that I absolutely will support the citizens.
Any further council discussion?
Just a
Councilman DePorter?
Just a quick comment. The piece of the pie that was missing for me last time was the public comment piece, so I appreciate going back to that. To use the words of Mr. Gray, I think he said earlier, an overwhelming, compelling argument was made for me through that public input process, through hearing from the residents. It just does not work for this site, and I won't be supporting it either.
Okay, thank you. My comment is, of course, to thank the applicant and all the work that you did on this project. I also want to thank the citizens. It's great to hear what you all had to say. I know many of you came to visit me in my office, and I appreciated that. You took a lot of time and effort, and I just want to assure everybody that we read it all, every single page, every single letter, whether it came from the applicant or it came from the citizens, and we carefully considered everything. The staff worked very hard on this in order to get this heard in a good amount of time. I know our staff came in over the weekends and were working also. So this was all done as an effort to accommodate everyone and to make sure that this was as fair as we could possibly make it. But I just want to assure you that for me, the strategic plan saying that anything that's built here in Fountain Hills should be to improve the quality of life. And that's what did it for me, along with many of the arguments you heard from my colleague, comments from my colleagues. So I just want to thank everybody, and thank you all for being respectful of our time and of all the different speakers that were here. We do appreciate that. And
I need to change that motion just a little.
oh, okay.
I will make the motion to not approve the change on ordinance 1803 and/or the Hemingway pad project. Is that right?
Just the ordinance.
Just the ordinance.
Just the ordinance.
Okay. And you still a second? Okay. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, 5-0.
Okay. Okay, going on to number 11, I am going to go to Grady on that.
Thank you, Mayor. During the break, the town attorney and I discovered that there was a little complication on number 11, and so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him to kind of explain what that is and how we plan on addressing that matter.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. In rereading ordinance number 2015-05, the recommendation there is if we're going to be extending or reverting, it be at a public hearing, and we have not identified it on the agenda as a public hearing, even though notice has gone out. So we recommend a withdrawal at this time so we could comply with the public hearing requirements.
Okay. We need a motion to do that, or?
No, we're
No.
just recommend withdrawal, and we will.
Just recommend.
Staff is going to be
Separate.
withdrawing that.
Okay. Everybody?
Mayor, members of the council, the public will have the opportunity to speak when it's re-agendized.
Okay, we're going to go on to number 12. So if you are all welcome to stay, but we denied it. We denied it. Yes, unanimous. I was wondering why you were all still sitting there. No. Oh, well, it didn't seem, I didn't have to. Okay, I didn't need to.
We just
Yeah.
want to make sure it's clear cut.
Yeah, we just want to make sure we're,
I clearly understand.
With them being technical?
They don't understand what happened, do they?
I hope they don't cut the tires.
Bring it on.
Sorry that I didn't have to call a roll I just, could just take a general vote, and it was 5-0 to deny. Okay? Everybody understands that. The number 11 is something else, so we'll just handle that at a different time. Okay, I just want to make sure everybody understands that. Thank you all for coming. You can stay if you want and hear the rest of it. Justin has a presentation. I was wondering why everybody was still sitting there. It's like, go.
Yeah, really.
What are you doing? They were waiting for a roll call vote. All right.
God, that's so good.
All right, number 12, of course, we want to go home sometime tonight. Consideration of the First Amendment to Professional Services Agreement, C 2017-087 with the CK Group for the design of Avenue the Fountains at La Montana intersection design phase 2018 in the amount of $36,000. Grady.
Yes, Mayor and Council, you recall that we engaged CK Group to study several different intersections in town. They looked at Palisades and Shea, they looked at Fountain Hills Boulevard and Shea, and then they also looked at the intersection of La Montana and Avenue of the Fountains. The item before you is to make an amendment to their professional services agreement so that they can do a design that is to help improve the safety of the intersection at La Montana and at Avenue of the Fountains. Most of the work will be done primarily in front of the post office. This is the issue where you have a lot of people that are wrong-way drivers, or they try to cut out of the parking lot of the post office and they go the wrong way to take shortcuts. So anyways, this is only the design. You had selected this as your preferred option, and so this is what this is for. So Justin's here if you have any further questions on this item.
Any questions for Justin? If not,
Move approval.
any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
I have one question. Thank you. I thought we were going to do a mock-up of it with cones or little knobs on the pavement to see what it was going to all look like. Are we not going to do that?
Mayor Kavanaugh, Vice Mayor Brown, as part of going from the concept to the design, the initial phase is to do temporary. So we will do pavement markings, and we will use number 9 Dagmires. Those are a relatively large, 9-inch in diameter, about 6-inch high, half a ball if you would, to demonstrate the permanent changes should it become necessary. But as part of this, note that the modifications to westbound Avenue of the Fountains approaching the driveway to the post office will be changed. So that portion will be permanent.
Got it, thank you.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
Any more questions for Justin? If not, somebody make a motion?
Second?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Mayor, 5-0.
Consideration of professional service agreement C 2018-104 between the Town of Fountain Hills and Sunrise Engineering Incorporated for the Fountain Hills Boulevard Concept Design Study, Shea Boulevard to Crystal Ridge Drive in the amount of $69,000. Great.
And I'll just have Justin, our Public Works Director, give you a synopsis of this project.
Thank you. Madam Mayor and members of the council, this is the design concept report that we will be requesting from Sunrise Engineering to demonstrate to us what will be necessary should the mayor and council decide to go forward with the widening of Fountain Hills Boulevard, basically from Pinto Drive to Crystal Ridge. So this is, again, just the design concept report to show us what may or may not be necessary in the future should we decide to go forward with this project.
Do we have any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Council discussion? Anybody want to make a motion?
Move to approve.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mayor, 5-0.
Consideration of the First Amendment to Cooperative Purchasing Agreement C 2017-115 between the Town of Fountain Hills and Climatech LLC for security camera installation and service, fire suppression inspections, and alarm monitoring, the amount of $192,930.64. Justin.
Madam Mayor and members of the council, this is a continuation of our CIP project that the mayor and council approved last year to install security cameras. The first phase of this, as you well know, was over at the community center, and we've had very positive results of that. So following through, we will continue to install cameras at other locations throughout town, including Fountain Park, Golden Eagle Park, and Four Peaks Park. That is one part of this contract. Also, this contractor provides a service to the town in regards to fire suppression, monitoring, and inspections. So there's some CIP funding here, and there is some facilities maintenance funding included in this. We're attempting to bring to mayor and council a contract that will cover not only the cameras, but also the fire suppression as part of this agreement.
Questions or comments? No, the only comment I want to make is I'm really glad about the cameras because I know that we've had a lot of vandalism, and the more cameras we put up, the better off we're going to be because it costs an awful lot of money to do those repairs, especially all of those, the vandalism that was done at Four Peaks Park, that bathroom there, and what went on over there. So it costs us an awful lot to repair, and this way we have the cameras and it's a big deterrent, and we also might catch the people that are doing it. Looking for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, speaker cards?
No cards.
Okay, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Mayor, 5-0.
Consideration of the First Amendment to Cooperative Purchasing Agreement C 2017-064 between the Town of Fountain Hills and Floresco Services LLC for the replacement of illuminated street name signs in the amount of $69,795.70. Justin?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, the contract that we have before you tonight is to upgrade the remaining traffic signal intersections where the illuminated street name signs are more often than not the most original ones. They are very faded and in very poor condition and of an outdated material. So the material that we intend to use is an updated material that is considerably more durable. I should also note as part of this that this will actually be done before the end of this fiscal year, which ends on June 30th. So the mayor and council and the citizens, residents as a whole will see a substantial improvement here over the next 3 weeks.
Okay. Cards?
No cards.
Council discussion?
Does this meet the dark sky ordinance?
Indeed it does.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mayor,
Consi-
5-0.
Consideration of the Third Amendment to Professional Services Agreement C 2012-129 with Sunrise Engineering for design and contract document modifications required by the Arizona Department of Transportation for the Fountain Hills Boulevard Shoulder Paving Project in the amount of $33,000. Justin?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, during the design process of this project, which has taken a considerable amount of time, ADOT changed some of their requirements of what would be required as part of the design, and this was not known initially. In fact, it was just brought to the attention of staff recently, and so staff requested that Sunrise Engineering provide documentation showing these changes and the cost. And this amount right here is to cover the remainder of that cost for the complete design. It should also be noted that very shortly, and I don't have the exact date, that project will be going to bid, and we will know some timelines and total cost for the project at that point.
So I guess we can't send them the bill, huh?
Who would we be sending the bill to?
The Arizona Department of Transportation that made changes and cost us more money.
Madam Mayor, we may not.
Doesn't work, huh?
Have you tried?
Speaker comments? Motion?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Mayor, 5-0.
Thank you. Discussion with possible direction to staff regarding the acceptance of 2 kinetic sculptures entitled Phoenix of Leaves and Medium Double Swirl to be placed within the Park Place development. Interesting names.
If you have seen the staff report and seen the photos associated with them, they're rather appropriate. Has everyone had a chance to see the art pieces?
Do you have any slides for public?
I do. Let's see if we can get these to match. These are not sizing the way that I would think they would. But this gives you a general idea of size and scope. This would be the medium double swirl.
Swirls.
Yes, followed by Phoenix of Leaves.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a tall one.
Yes.
Does it move?
They are. They are both kinetic sculptures, so they both have movable portions.
With the wind, just with the wind?
Correct.
Okay.
Let's see. The Phoenix of Leaves, this one here, is roughly 18 feet tall and 5 feet wide. The double swirl feature is roughly 14 feet tall and 6 feet wide. That gives you kind of a scope of the size of both pieces. These are both in conjunction with the Park Place Development Phase 1 and part of the fulfillment of the 1% public art. Both items have been reviewed and accepted by the Public Art Committee and the Fountain Hills Civic and Cultural Association.
Okay, so these are fully paid for?
Correct.
Questions? Councilman Porter.
My only question is, I'm assuming this satisfies the requirement that the public can access this, not just residents of Park Place?
Correct. They will be in a publicly accessible area, but it will be on private property, much like Matilda the horse within the Plaza Fountainside area. Does that make sense?
Any idea what the timing is?
I don't, actually. We have not yet gotten information about when they will be. I do know that the pieces are on site, but I have not heard when they will actually be installed.
Okay, and when we accept these, then this will be part of our collection?
The intention is that they would be considered part of the public art collection. However, because they are installed on private property, we will be working with the property owner to develop an agreement that says that they need to maintain them.
They need to maintain them.
Correct.
And does that include insurance?
Likely, yes.
Yes.
We're working on that agreement side of this as we work with the developer.
Speaker cards?
No cards.
If I may, perhaps if there's a motion tonight on this, rather than the way it's written regarding the acceptance, is probably more approval, that you're approving these designs and these public arts, because as we are talking about, we'd like to have an agreement later on with the owner of the building to maintain these. So, and if you wish, you might even add that into the motion as well. Discussion of possible direction of staff regarding the approval of these and to direct the city manager to execute a agreement with the Park Place LLC owner regarding maintenance of the pieces.
So moved, that's what I said.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, 5-0.
Consideration of authorizing staff to apply for the Diamondback Youth Field Building Grant for ball field reconstruction at Four Peaks Park. Rachel.
Mayor and Council, this is a grant that we alluded to several meetings ago regarding the Four Peaks Park improvements that are identified in our capital improvement project plan. The ball fields are not part of that plan right now. There's just simply not enough funding to do those. However, they are in need of some help, and staff recognizes that, and we feel that this is a good opportunity for us to perhaps piggyback on the other improvements in the park and reach out through this grant procedure to see if we may qualify for the 2019 Diamonds Back Field Grant. The grant is due at the end of July, so should it be approved tonight, we will submit and see what happens. And if we are awarded or we have any feedback, I'll be happy to keep you posted, but we would know by the end of November of 2018 if we were the recipients.
Any speaker cards?
No speaker cards.
Council discussion, questions?
I think this is great. Again, applaud your always attention to what sort of grants are out there and your attention to this park that has needed it for quite some time. So I move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mayor, 5-0.
Consideration of amendment to professional services agreement C 2018-15 between the Town of Fountain Hills and Wildan Financial Services for the biennial audits of the town's development fees in the amount of $12,000 with 3 additional one-year renewals. Craig?
Mayor and council, as part of the statute that was changed to adopt the development fee statutes, requires a biennial audit of our development impact fees. Wildan Financial just completed the audit for fiscal years 15 and 16. In my opinion, they did a very fine job with minimal impact on staff. So I'm recommending that we rehire Wildan to complete the fiscal years 17 and 18 at a cost of $12,000.
Do you have any slides on this?
I do not. I'm sorry. I came without slides tonight.
Speaker cards?
No speaker cards.
Council discussion or questions for Craig?
Move to approve.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Consideration of a third amendment to professional services agreement C 2015-107.3 between the Town of Fountain Hills and Al Holler and Associates to increase the contract by $12,000 from $174,000 to $186,000 for audit services to the 2018-19 fiscal year. Craig?
Al Holler and Associates has been a contractor for the town in the performance of sales tax audits, technically transaction village tax audits. He is well regarded and recognized by the Department of Revenue as one of the better independent auditors. We wish to continue our longstanding relationship with him to undertake any sales tax audits that we might find. Just for council's information, we have just recently started a project to identify residential rental properties. And just a couple weeks ago, we mailed out 1,400 letters to potential property owners in Fountain Hills that are requesting information to ascertain that they are A, properly registered, and B, have a TPT license, and therefore are paying the proper tax. We have already received some calls from residents indicating they don't like our tax and aren't going to pay it. So we will need some assistance from somebody with more technical expertise to pursue the property owners through the Department of Revenue to make sure the town is receiving all the revenue that they are entitled to.
Wow, that's a big number. That's
Yes.
great.
Yes.
And there are so many people that do rent properties and they know they have to pay the rental tax and they pay it and they don't say anything. And that's why we're doing this, because it's fair. I mean, if it's on the books and they've got to pay it, then everybody has to. It's not just the people who do it willingly.
And we believe the vast majority of those 1,400 are properly registered and paying taxes, but we are just trying to collect the information to create a database so that we can make sure that we have updated information.
Great, good. Any questions, comments, cards? No? Motion?
So moved.
All in favor? Okay. No slides. Again, no slides. All right. 21 is council direction, discussion to the town manager. And is this the appropriate time for Councilman Magazine? You had,
Oh, yeah.
The last.
I just wanted to thank Cecil. I want to thank Cecil for his service and say I enjoyed serving with you.
that's very nice. And appreciate you finishing up all that work that you started. But even as a citizen, you could still lend us a hand through your contacts. So you're not off the hook yet. Anything else? Anything for 22? No? And we're just left with an adjournment. Who wants to do that?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.